think about, in addition to this mail out, a mail out going to local union leadership that's more of an encouraging type thing that
Yeah,
we need some work?
yeah. We want to talk to you about what we need to do in the fourth, perhaps, after the meeting's over. If you would like to, I've had a conference with Jack Schaefer and Charles, they were in yesterday. I've had a couple of calls, and I've told them all that we would do what your committee felt we ought to do, but we didn't think we ought to do anything but talk to you. So we'll have some discussion. Of course, we got this on the agenda, and we'll ask you to make a report on it. And if you'd like, tell us what you think we need to do in addition to what we're already trying to do. But I'd like to get the first district thing out of the way if we leave the senatorial race. Anybody got any comments on the senatorial race?
How many union halls have, like they said, someone made the statements, very few signs of,
Union hall?
right, that if they didn't know themselves that Labor had made these endorsements, by looking at a union hall, you couldn't tell it.
I hadn't thought about that, but perhaps what we need to do, maybe Brother touched on, I know is Dan already gonna be back and working with us, Jim? We might get Jim, he's working with us in this thing. That's a good thought. Check these union halls and see them if it's got a poster or something on their bulletin boards. If they hadn't got one, ask them to put one on there. That's a good thought.
We got it better than that, Claude.
Yeah.
And the ones where it's got a glass front, like in my office, I
Yeah.
got the big picture of Danton, one on each side of the door, right next to the street. Not only can the members see it, but everybody passes it.
We got that.
And our local in Hattiesburg's got the same thing. Now, some of our buildings don't have a glass front. You would find it inside.
But it is a good thought to have somebody check these halls out and see if there is anything in there.
Claude, on the same subject, I think when we have a Coke convention, we need to kind of maybe use.
Plaster it up.
No, you need to get up there and tell them that some of these people are coming down to the conventions and not going back and reporting to their members. I stay on them all the time about it, and we're gradually making a little progress. But if we keep on these people that say that they should go back, and you can tell them as good as anybody that they should go back and report to their members why this would help a whole lot.
Okay.
I'd just like to make a comment. Anybody in the labor movement at this point, in this campaign that don't know labor is supporting that, and they don't read the newspaper, they don't watch the television, they don't listen to the radio, and they don't read their mail. Now, I don't know how you can reach them if they don't do none of that.
James,
That's a good
I went
thought.
by Union Hall yesterday. I didn't see a poster of Danton nowhere in it. And I asked the secretary about it, and she says, "Oh, we got some posters." She went back in the back and brought a stack of Finch's posters out about that high.
Yeah.
Well, you might find in some cases that some unions will support it.
You can't even get into it.
Yeah.
One sign
Last
against
week
Wiggle
up there,
big below.
on the first congressional race, local up there was supporting
Well, now,
it. We just like Brother Jackson, we got two big pictures in the front, and the electricians and the plumbers are both in the same building, so they
Can't
can't
miss
miss
if they come down.
Everybody knows it now, I agree with you, Jay, but we had some that we run into that had already jumped on Sullivan's and Finch's bandwagon before we
Prior to
came
the
out.
convention.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you had that.
And then they claimed that they didn't know that we had endorsed it.
Well, that was just a handy excuse.
okay, can we leave that? Let's get a report. Ronnie, since Joe wasn't able to make the meeting, I guess we'll have to ask you to give us a report on the first district.
Okay, well, you probably all know now, we got spanked pretty good up there with Mr. Whitten. Chatham, I don't feel like he had any kind of organization until Labor did endorse him. And I do think that he'll tell you today that what votes that he got, majority of the ones that he did get, was because of Labor's endorsement.
Yeah.
One of the things that he was building momentum, one of the problems that we had in his campaign was that he wasn't well known.
Yeah.
He was from Hernando, district attorney up there, and we was trying to get his name out before the people at the same time, and the election kept drawing closer. He did out Mr. Whitten shook up. This is the first time I can ever remember in my lifetime of him going out and campaigning in the field like, and he did a lot of this in the counties that I live in. There in Lee County and around, he had various spots on the radio. Of course, there's some concern I know from some people about Whitman's voting record, and occasionally he does give you, or give us a vote, but you don't have too much to compare him with as far as our congressmen from this state go. So we felt like in the first congressional race that we should endorse someone, and we should endorse Chatham. Now, I don't know what the outcome is going to be. I feel like maybe that Mr. Whitman will get the word. All the reports that I get from the people is that if Chatham does run 2 years from now, that he will beat him. Some of the people that has been staunch Whitman supporters for years is slowly but surely changing over. So that's basically it. I'll say somebody continues.
I think everybody understood, Ronnie, what the situation was at the outset, that this was a long shot proposition, and that you felt that Whitman ought to have opposition. And I want to congratulate you on the job you did up there. I think you did an exceptionally good job, with all the factors considered, especially with our good friend Theodore writing letters and running them in the papers over taking you to task on that. I thought Joe done a pretty good job on that. Of course, you got a copy of the letter Theodore wrote, and I'm sure that you'll be around answering that before long.
Yeah.
We had a lunch with Theodore, run into it here last week. Him and his wife were here, and with Dee's, Tom, and I believe Cecil. What you know, let's see, 4 of us come over here for lunch and run to Theodore. Naturally, we invited them to have lunch with us. I stayed away from that thing myself. But Brother Dees eventually got around to it. Him being a constituent of Theodore, of course, would be the appropriate man to do it. But I want you to know that Stoffer Dees really told him how to eat the cabbage on that situation.
He tore him up.
He tore him up in a nice, dignified fashion. And not so dignified in some respects.
You have saw the letter that he wrote Joe back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a copy of that. Joe sent me a copy.
Joe penned a note and said that he didn't consider his first letter to be rude or whatever Smith called, but he said, I do plan now to send him a nasty letter the next time I get a chance.
Okay, the one thing I want to request of you, Ron, if you make a note of this and do this, I'd appreciate it. It might slip my mind. We need a receipt out of Chatham for that $500 we sent him. We sent them our receipt thinking that's what they wanted, but it turns out they want a receipt from the candidate. And of course, I've asked Ralph to do the same thing. Okay, Ralph, we're getting around to the 4th district. You still got a live candidate, so we're gonna let you tell us now what your situation is.
Okay, Claude, just briefly, for those in other areas of the state that may have not been following it real closely, we ended up with, I think out of a field of 7 people, we got our endorsed candidate Disharoon into the runoff, and I might say by a fairly narrow margin. And the situation as I see it right now, that election can be had out there, depending on a number of factors. One is what the candidate himself does, and 2, what we can get our people to do. Now, one of the things I'm running into in dealing with some of our people, and I'm talking about leadership of local unions, is the same problem we had from the very beginning. They're still standing in awe of that name Stennis, and they just, you know, sitting back and saying, we can't do it, we can't do it, we can't stop Stennis. The Stennis name carries too much weight. Well, there was only about 28 to 30% of the voters that turned out in the 4th Congressional District, and the Stennis name only carried 43% of that. Now, granted, our candidate didn't carry but about 18 or 19% of the total vote. But, you know, that other vote is still out there, and there's a lot of questions that come up about it. One, Melvin Jennings, a black candidate that was running primarily as a black candidate, pull just a small percentage less than what Disharum did, and there, for a long time, when the results was coming in, it was questionable as to which one of them was gonna be in the runoff. We got a problem now. Can we go out into the black community and come up with some support for our candidate? Can we get our labor people, both black and white, generated to do something in behalf of our candidate? There are certain black leadership that has endorsed Stennis openly, and of course there's others that's just out in the community working for him. And I think a lot of that comes about from the same situation we've got with our people, that some of them feel, well, he's gonna be the man to win, and so therefore, let's, get whatever we can out of him. We just did not deliver the kind of vote that we are capable of delivering and should have delivered in this election. We should have been able to deliver just about the total vote that Disharum got. And I know that we accounted for a good portion of what he got, but I know we didn't. I know he had other support besides us. But of course you and Tom, and part of the problem we've got in some of the areas in the 4th District, the labor movement in Natchez is not too closely together. And the situation in Vicksburg, we've just run into all kind of difficulties ever even getting a meeting with some of our labor leaders in Vicksburg. When we finally got one set up, I wasn't able to make it, but Tom went over with the candidate. There's just a handful of people turned out. Several of the bigger local unions there were just not even represented. What'd you have? Maybe 10 local
six.
unions, 6 to 10 local
We had
representatives?
we had about 4 local unions there, maybe 5 at the outside.
And somewhere or another, we've got to come up with in the next couple of weeks, and if it's 2 weeks away, us getting some of our leadership busy, well then it'd be too late then. I'd say in the next week, we've got to come
Right,
up with
so that'd
some
be
kind
done
of
in
way
the
to
next
generate
week.
some
Right.
enthusiasm and interest from the leadership and get to the membership. And, a situation I find out there, Claude, is what, Brother Jackson was talking about there a while ago about if the members is not aware of who we've endorsed and all, they don't read the papers or don't do this and don't do that. But I find there's just a whale of a lot of confusion out there, and that don't have anything to do with this fact we had this Republican primary here. There's still people right up to election day couldn't distinguish who was running for Congress and who was running for the Senate.
Yeah.
They just don't, the average person on the street, including a lot of our membership, is just not that politically educated. And I'm with Mayor now, somewhere or another, we just gotta keep hitting them with them names. And we've had very poor response from I know that a lot of local leadership, and I've been guilty of this, so I'm not saying it unduly critical, I'm stating it as a problem we've got. Whatever they do out there on their own, and we have no coordination, and I know that there's some local leadership that is doing some things. But when it comes time to try to get a coordinated effort out here, I know one Saturday we tried to get a group of people together to get out in some of the shopping centers and pass out cards in behalf of our candidates, and we finally did come up with a crowd of about 20 to 25 people. But all of them was out of 3 local unions. And then another Saturday was scheduled, and that was a weekend, and I had to be out of town, and we had some people go out into some of the neighborhoods, but we didn't have a very large response for that. And, we're just gonna have to try, I think, come up with some kind of way of getting to our people other than just the mail out. I think that's very effective, and I think it's good. But there again, I hope that we're still looking at that if we're really gonna give our candidate the support that we should be giving, we got to try to get to other people and work with the candidate to get to other people besides just our membership, because our membership don't elect people in the state of Mississippi. So I'm very interested in sitting down with you and Tom, and we've got to get some of our other people, Lewis Turner and Mary Nell, some of the other people around in the 4th district, out here working. Of course, one of the things that I find that hurts us in a congressional, situation too is so many of our people is concentrating so heavily on the Senate situation that they're just not giving much attention to the congressional. And, if we don't get up off our rumps and do it, we're gonna have another Stennis name in Washington.
Or
And I fear,
Republican.
yeah, and I fear that once he gets there, he's gonna be there for a while.
Or a Republican. You gotta remember that Dorsey's sitting in the wings gonna run as an independent.
Well, that's
Whoever wins the primary is gonna run against the Republican, but Dorsey's an independent. And that's gonna apply in the senatorial thing. We'll have to deal with that one later.
Well, we've got a serious problem out there in the black community, and not in just the black community, the black labor community.
Well, let me ask you a question, and I advise the board of this in terms of asking him the question. We arranged to get Alan Johnson in here for a couple of weeks, black minister who, all of you know, who gave the invitation to our convention, has worked with us rather closely. And asked him to go out there and do an educational job. I'd like to know, Ralph, whether or not you or this room feels whether he was affected, did he do any good or not?
I was planning on asking you that.
What does the
And
candidate
we need
feel?
to talk about that, but see,
Yeah. What does the candidate feel?
well, the candidate feels that some good has been done, but he's counting on us. The last time I talked to
I
you
know
about it,
they were mixed up. One day they thought it was good, and we got ready to get him in here. The next thing, they back off, say, we don't think we want it. A couple of days later, they come back to you and said, yeah, we think we need him out there. So I told him, instead of reporting directly back to me or to you, for him to work with the candidate and go where the candidate thought he needed to be working.
well,
See?
that's something you and I are gonna have to talk
All
about,
right.
but he's
Yeah.
not reporting to you and them neither,
Is that right?
okay?
Well, we need to know about this before we make any moves to get him back in here. I'm certainly not gonna get him in here unless that's what your committee and the candidate wants. So this is the type of thing I guess we need to be talking about a little bit later. Let me
Well,
ask you,
the candidate asked that we bring him back in, but
yeah,
from our standpoint, we need to sit down and find
Have
out.
a better
And I
understanding
think
with
we're
him.
gonna have to have some feedback on what he's doing out
okay,
there.
okay, it's, of course, that's the kind of thing we talk about later. What about a meeting of the local union leadership? Do you think it would help any to try to get such a meeting, get them back in here, or not? You know, you got a problem with some of the local unions. It might be worth trying to think about another 4th district, labor leadership meeting.
Todd, I think if such a meeting could be had and you can get a turnout, it'd be great, but I'm of the opinion you call such a meeting, the only people that you're gonna get into it's the people that's already doing something.
Oh, let me elaborate just a little bit. This has already been said in a little different way. We're talking about the 4th district now. Of course, it affected the Senate campaign too. At a meeting that Ralph and I was at, I thought I was gonna get whipped to start with at the outset because I didn't really know what was bothering the guy. I was asked by one of the people present what labor's problems had been with the governor, right, Ralph? I was asked to explain this. Well, you know, you can't just start yesterday afternoon and talk about that, so I was given the floor, and I'd taken quite a little bit of time. In the meantime, this member walked in. Well, it was apparently very distasteful to him, and of course it seemed at first he was a Finch supporter. Anyway, he just kept interrupting. I had turned to the chairman. I said, Mr. Chairman, do I have the floor or not? I was asked a question. I'm in the process of answering the question. Given the answer, I feel like the party's entitled to. He says, you do have the floor. Well, it was all right for a few minutes. This guy just kept interrupting, you know? And I thought, well, you know, he's going to come over the table on me. But it turns out that this guy is for J. Desharon and Maurice Danton. But he don't have the slightest idea how we go about interviewing candidates or making a decision and who makes that decision. All right, it was very embarrassing in a sense to me and two or three other people in the meeting, because two or three other people in the meeting had been originally appointed as members of the 4th Congressional District Interview Committee, and none of them had ever showed up. See, they admitted this, right, Ralph? And one of the other guys who had been appointed, who was supposed to have been reporting to the people that this man is involved with, wasn't even at the meeting and hadn't been at the meeting. So it turned out that he ain't mad with me or the state AFL-CIO. He's mad as heck with his local union, because we're getting back now, the local leadership is not reporting to anybody on anything. And he was as mad as the devil because they'd kept him in the dark, and he didn't know why we were supporting anybody, see? And he knew that nobody around there wasn't doing anything. So I think this is a good, glaring example of the fact. I have an idea that the next meeting that local union has is going to be a real lively affair after he found out that.
Well, I detected too, he was somewhat mad at you, and he did want you to hush, primarily because he wanted the floor.
Yeah, I guess so. Anyhow, I had been asked the question, and I had to go back and check and see if I still had the floor, because I was trying to answer the guy's question to his satisfaction, but involved in it was the fact that he was thoroughly hacked off at his own local union officers, see. So we do have these problems, and I don't know how in the heck, when you write letters, you can't go out here at gunpoint and bring people in, you know?
Well, Tom done everything he could do to try to help in this thing. He set up meetings and went there himself, and Natchez and Vicksburg, I know. And, we've made the effort to try to get the local leadership involved. But I'm agreeing with him. What do we do to get them there? What do we do? That's the big question.
Claude, we can talk about it, later when we get together. But
right.
one of the things I got in mind, I think that possibly me and Tom or somebody, but it's not something you can just put somebody that nobody knows to do it, It's gonna have to just spend a lot of time on that telephone call.
I got some ideas
Calling
too.
some
We can get
local
into later.
leadership and.
Okay, all right. Why don't we leave that, if we could get a motion, somebody out of other than the 4th District, to authorize Tom and myself to continue working with the 4th District Committee on this thing.
I so move.
We'll get the committee together and we'll see what needs to be done, okay? We got that motion, we had a second, we had a discussion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. All opposed, motion carried, it's ordered. Ralph, I assume you want to do this as soon as possible. I'd like to ask Lois, Marinell, yourself, anybody else here from Hines or one of those, and Cecil, if good, would like to have you sit in on this. Might be able
Did you want to mention any further about the situation that's regarding finances with Allen? Did you want to mention anything about our financial situation as far as Allen was concerned?
I don't think it's necessary at this point. I'm assuming that this motion adopted, whether that means that we do what we can, include that to help out, okay?
Claude, I would like to say something on the vote. I was a little bit disappointed in the percentage of the vote that this room come up with, but after sitting down and counting the total vote that was registered for the congressional delegates and the number of people in the race, and the fact that the votes that we was counting on, we thought we probably would get for this room, we went to the other candidate. I think when you analyze that, he didn't do too bad, although he only got 18% of the vote. But when you divide it up among the 7,
Right.
and the votes that we were counting on, we knew we wasn't gonna count on those, most of those that Stennis got. But when you
analyze the votes that went to the other candidate that you thought you might would get, he didn't do so bad. But just look at the overall picture, with the 43 and the 18%, it
Right,
looks real bad. But when you get them all together and
right.
sit down and analyze, he didn't do too bad.
Well, it's like Ralph said, we still gotta,
It
gotta
can- it
fight
can
for
be
change.
won.
Before you leave, let me say this. We got out the notice to the central body officers, as you've already been notified, about the meeting Sunday afternoon. Now, I am also, Brother Miley, in the process right now of calling people in the 4th district. See, that's another thing, that in addition to our caucus on the Senate meeting after the meeting Sunday, I was in hopes that we would then have some time also to go into this 4th district thing. Hopefully, we'll have some other people scattered in the different areas that we gotta have. And I'm in the process right now, Ralph, and I am this evening and tonight and tomorrow, gonna call some more folks from the 4th Congressional District and try once again to get a reasonable, kind of representative delegation here for Sunday also on this Congressional District thing.
Time is of the essence, there's no question about that. All right, do we have any other comments, Stump, on the 4th district thing? Rob, we'll get together with you and whoever else you want present. I think Marinell and Lois.
I want everybody with
These is where you can, like, settle on that. But whoever you want involved in this meeting with us, you invite them out. We'll try to get together when we break up as to when you think you'd like to get together. We'll meet wherever you want to. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the appointment or the possibility of appointing Minority Affairs Director. Let me explain that situation to you. Back several years ago, when Bob Woodson was first elected to the executive board, we suggested to the board that it might be a good idea to appoint Bob Woodson as give him a title of Director of Minority Affairs for this organization. The thought there was it would give him a little more prestige in working in the black community. And he was designated in that capacity and served in that capacity for as long as he is on the board. And we've had a little discussion with Cecil and a couple of the rest of you, and we feel at this point that Cecil Sheldon should be designated to serve in that capacity. So we'd like to present that to you.
Not so moved.
I'll second it.
All right, any discussion on that? Not all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. The next item on the agenda, I promised Brother Bell at the last meeting before we adjourned that we would allow some time on our agenda for him to discuss with us a lawsuit that his local union currently has in the courts involving a problem they're having on getting tax exemption status for his local union buildings. So Bonnie, Ronnie, at this point you are free now to lay it all out there.
Okay. Thank you, Claude. I think probably the first thing I ought to do is tell you and the board why our local union is coming to the state AFL-CIO and asking for some assistance in this particular problem. We built a new union hall back 2 years ago in Tupelo, and when the first taxes was due, I called Tom and talked to him about it. My understanding with Tom was that the locals throughout the state was tax exempt under the statutes of the state. And basically all he had to do here in Jackson himself was to go up and apply for tax exemption, and it was automatically granted. So I did this. I went up to the courthouse and got with the proper officials, although I wound up talking to the board of supervisors there in Lee County. They said they'd never heard of this, they didn't know anything about it. So then we put it in the form of a formal request for the board to take action on. We were denied, we appealed, we were denied a second time, and as a result, we hired John Maxey here in Jackson to represent us in this matter. We carried it through the Lee County Circuit Court and lost. Now, getting back to what I stated to start with, this is the reason that we're coming to the state AFL-CIO and asking for some help on this matter. Let me say one other thing. We exercised every avenue that we had prior to going into circuit court. John Maxey, our attorney, wrote a letter to the chief attorney for the Mississippi Tax Commission. I've got a copy of the letter, and I've also got a copy of the request to go to the Supreme Court here, so a motion's already been filed. Basically, this is what the letter says, and I'm going to bring out 2 points on it. It says, your letter of May the 30th states the following question: is a building owned, occupied, and used exclusively by a labor union for their union business exempt from ad valorem taxes? It has been the opinion of the Mississippi State Tax Commission that such property is exempt as a fraternal organization under section 2731 PD Mississippi Code 1972, so long as the union uses the property exclusively for their business headquarters. Should they rent or lease any part of the property, the exemption would be lost on the leased or rented portion. This would be true even though they may rent or lease to another exempt organization. Now here's what I want you to look at, and this is what they're taking us on. The key to this interpretation is whether or not a labor union is a fraternal organization, and it has been our opinion that such organization under our statutes so qualify. Now, the attorney with the Board of Supervisors has challenged the local unions throughout the state, or well, our local union in particular, stating that local unions was not, in his terminology, fraternal or benevolent to anybody other than your own members. So under his interpretation, it would not be tax exempt under the statute. Now, we're going into the Supreme Court with this. The opinion of John Maxey, our attorney here in Jackson, is that if we lose, then, or if we don't carry it on, then in all probability, some of the places around the state will use this to deny you tax exemption on your property. Because the whole key to this thing is whether or not, on the statutes of the state, you are, and I am, or anybody else is, a fraternal and benevolent organization. So, as I told you at the last board meeting, our local union has directed me to go on to the Supreme Court regardless of whether the state picks up any of the cost or not. The cost involved would be, according to Mr. Maxey, would be between $500 and $750. We've already spent $1,500 getting this thing through circuit court, and I'm simply asking you this: that if you feel like that the state should, since this could apply to the other people throughout the state or other local unions throughout the state, if the state can and this board wants to, we would like to ask you for some financial assistance.
Okay, that problem pops up every now and then in some areas in the state. We had a problem with the Boilermakers. Finally, I think was able to swing that one. We had a problem down at Crystal Springs with IUE local assembly problem. Was finally able to swing that one. And Ronnie's situation is the only one that I know about where we were unable to convince the local taxing authorities to grant them tax
That's not
exemption.
true, Claude. We got about 10 or 12 buildings in the state,
you?
about a third of them's exempt, and the other 2/3 we'd be in the same shape either.
As the other
We've been
third-
paying taxes on it.
As the other third attempted to get exemption.
All of them's tried, and in the counties where we've been turned down, we just didn't go to court, we've been
Just
paying
didn't
the
bother?
taxes. Right.
So it's the worst problem I knew about, I wasn't aware of that.
Columbia, we pay taxes in
Right.
Lincoln County.
You always have. We asked
Have
for
you
exemption.
attempted to get exemption over
In the
there?
beginning
we
days, yeah,
didn't.
not recently.
Not recently, we haven't. The tax
Well,
base really don't know.
this matter perhaps needs to be clarified. And if it sits where it is now, as Ronnie pointed out, they might take that lower court decision, try to deny some of your tax exemption status, and perhaps we need to get behind it and push it on through and get the Supreme Court ruling on it. Now, of course, if we lose it, it means that
That everybody will pay.
it'll affect everybody anyhow, and then the next thing we'll have to do is get the law clarified by the legislature. That would be where
I'd say the
we'd be.
majority's paying anyway, Claude, the way it is now, I'd say the majority, if you check them. I know ours.
Did I understand you say that in Columbus you are paying ad valorem property tax?
We are in Columbia,
Oh,
Marion
Columbia.
County.
Yeah,
We're paying it in
Columbia.
Forest County.
The language in the law is just as plain as a nose on your face. There's just absolutely no way that they can separate a labor organization from a church or anything, because I've been to the Attorney General's office. I've sat there, I've heard him read it out of the statute books, I've read it myself.
Well, we got
It's
all
just
kinds
as
of
plain.
opinions on it from the Attorney General's office.
Well, what happens, each county seems to settle this question for themselves. And
That's
then
exact-
that's where you're dealing with, see.
That's what I
exactly
think we
right.
got.
I think we ought to go ahead and help a little.
If the county says you're exempt, then you don't pay it.
How
If they
much,
don't,
how
you either
much-
pay it or go to court.
How much, Ron, let me ask you a kind of a pertinent question. What kind of money are we talking about?
Well, John has told me, Claude, to carry it on through the Supreme Court, it would be between $500 and $750.
Would you be satisfied with $500? Can we get a motion that?
I
I
make
make
a
a
motion.
motion that we can,
Let's get one person to
Hey,
make.
I didn't
I
do
make
that
a
all
motion
the
that we
way.
do that, and if it fails, then we know where we stand, we got to get the legislature to clarify it or something.
I got
Right.
one suggestion, Claude.
The motion was offered by our brother Ordman. Let's let the secretary get this for the record, the minutes. Who seconded the mayor now?
No, it's a Dimple second, since
The
both
Dimple
make
seconded,
motions
Dimple,
same
Dimple
thing.
Harry, okay. All right, motion, is before you now, motion and has been seconded, we're having a discussion. Jim?
Under discussion, I'd just like to say that if they are successful and the Supreme Court does rule in their favor, that each local union in the state then be furnished a copy of that decision so they can take it up to their
Certainly.
Right.
county tax assessor and get the problem straightened out.
We'll certainly do that. I didn't, you know, I'm learning something here. I didn't realize the problem was as great as it
Each
is.
county deals with it on an individual basis.
And you
Let
see
me
here,
say one other thing before we get off of this, I don't know if you're aware or not, but Carpenter's has got a local union hall there in Tupelo and has had for a number of years. And they're basically what Jane was talking about a while ago. Columbus District has recently taken this over. Mr. Taylor and Bob, who works in Tupelo, was at the hearing when we had the circuit court hearing. And they're now real interested in this because they intend to apply, you know, for tax exemption if we get it. Of course, the problem is this, and has been, Dave Wright there in Tupelo, has been paying taxes on a piece of property they've got, which is not much a year for a long time, simply because it was refused. But I think if we win this thing, and I'll be glad to furnish copies to everybody, then we all ought to go for it, because
Yeah.
if it's right, if it's in the law, we ought to have it.
Well,
Once you
we'll
get a
do
court
it.
ruling on it, we could.
Well,
But
we'll
not each
certainly,
individual would have to go to court.
we'll certainly, provide the locals in this state with a copy of that decision when and if we win it. Of course, if we lose it, I don't know what we ought
you
to do.
see,
We've been paying them on in
Here-
Chickasaw County.
here's what you got. Here's where these supervisors are violating the law. You see, the only authority that the supervisors have in this situation is to determine if that piece of property involved is a nonprofit organization. And that's as far as they can go. It's automatically exempt. But the supervisors in Lee County are going beyond their authority, see? They don't have any authority to deny taxation or free tax exempt status, you see? They're not to decide that. Their only legal authority is to determine if it's a nonprofit organization. And everybody within a sense knows that a labor union is a nonprofit organization.
Well, we're gonna test it in court and find out. That's what we decided to do. We have any further discussion on that motion? Not, are you ready to vote? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried and so ordered. Bonnie, I think the best thing for us to do in this thing is just to send your local union a check for $500 and let you then push it at your
Carl, let
discretion.
me say this, on behalf of the membership of my local union, I appreciate the board doing these for us. We're going, looks like, to the Supreme Court on another matter, so.
Yeah. We got another lawsuit to discuss, but I see coffee over there. Maybe we ought to take a quick break and get a little coffee and then come back and finish up. We ought to be through in 30 minutes.
Contract here, Frank.
Oh, I hadn't talked to her. She said you were convinced. Oh, man, sure.
Can we call the meeting back to order?
Send them back over here for, write the name of 3 of them.
Will the meeting please come to order? The next item on the agenda is a mate lawsuit, status of that lawsuit, and I'm not gonna spend a lot of time with you, but in view of the fact that we're involved in this matter, I think that I ought to at least bring you up to date on that particular situation, and let you know where we are. We've been involved in this thing for some time. As you know, we got 2 attorneys engaged, and the Attorney General's office is doing everything they can to delay this thing. It's become very obvious. It's going to be a long, drawn-out affair, and it's going to be much more expensive than what we thought it would be when we first got involved. We've had considerable discussion with the Board of Directors on this matter, and we have now come to the conclusion that we're going to have to work out an arrangement with the attorneys that this thing be handled on a contingent basis, that we insist on recovering the expense of this lawsuit from the state because of the attitude of the Attorney General. Now, we have invested up to this point $3,500 in this matter. I was authorized to spend up to $5,000, and I put them all on notice that that $1,500 is as far as I can go. I don't want them to think that we got a sack full of money. And so what we're going to do in the very near future is sit down with the attorneys and get an understanding out of them that from this point on, their fee is dependent upon their ability to win the lawsuit and recover it from the state. Okay?
That's fine.
That sounds good to me.
So with that, we'll leave that matter, and I'll try to keep you informed on it as the matter progresses.
You have not had a mate meetings, since Tuesday, Proposition 13 in California?
No. No, we haven't. We haven't. Of course, that situation out there is quite different from our situation. As you know, our problem is the fact that we got a lot of inequities here from county to county, from community to community, and then we got homestead exemption involved in it, which they don't have. Proposition 13 in California was passed, as I'm sure all of you know, and it nails down to 1% the value of property that can be taxed. Of course, they don't have the homestead exemption thing. See, we got a situation here that's, well, it's almost unbelievable. And all we're looking for here is equity, equal taxation across the board in all the counties. And there, what they were hollering about was exorbitant taxes, period. And I don't much blame them. I'm sure if I'd have been in California, I'd have been for that proposition.
Well, but
like
it ain't
most
gonna
of
help
you.
them much, Claude. They ain't gonna pay it out in federal income tax. Did you read that last article?
Yeah.
The way they've been paying the taxes was tax
Well,
exempt.
what they're gonna
Federal
wind
now,
up-
since they're not gonna be paying it.
Probably what's gonna wind up, the state's gonna have to increase the sales tax and reimburse the local communities to make up the difference. So somebody's gonna pay the bill.
Plus the individuals
Yeah.
are gonna pay more federal income tax.
Some more Ronald Reagan crap.
All right, I got a matter down here on organizing and related matters. We have a number of situations here in the state that I think the rest of the board would be interested in. And I started off number one. I was advised by Bart Murray yesterday that that the Washington board had reversed the decision of the regional board as it relates to the Keystone plant in Pontotoc that was organized by the aluminum workers some time ago. It's part of the IUD program. The IUD organized it for the union worker, for the aluminum workers. Some 500 people involved in this one. It's a rather big plant. Bart advised me that the Washington board had reversed the decision of the regional board and the union that the aluminum workers had been certified. I just talked to Ronnie about this. He wasn't aware of it. It just happened. Now, I wanted you to know about that. The other thing, Jim, I'd like to get a report out of you on a couple of your situations. I'm especially interested in your strike situation, south
Okay,
of
well,
here.
let me just give you the Greenville Mills thing first. It
Yeah,
happened
right.
yesterday.
Yeah,
and,
right.
It come out about like we expected. Our problem there, as many of you know, was that other unions prior to us merging with textile, textile being one of them, had gone into Greenville at various times, stayed a short period of time, and left the people high and dry, and several people over the years had gotten fired. The main thing we had to overcome was to be sure the people understood we was going to be there the next day. Practically every week of that campaign, they expect to look out the door and see us gone. We stayed in there about a year, and in that election yesterday, there was 1,005 people eligible to vote. We got 349 votes, which we think was a respectable vote and give us a base to go back next year. Company got 567. There's one challenged and 2 void. And we don't plan to file any objections to that election, but we've already got some 8-1 charges filed against the company that the board's issued a complaint on, that the trial is going to be held sometime in the month of August. We also, just this week, filed some additional charges. They've got a seniority booklet in effect, that's company policy, which says if a person is laid off, they've got recall rights up to a year. It's their own booklet. It's got nothing to do with the union contract. But we feel they violated this in a couple of places because they laid off some of the people who was active on the committee. And their defense to the labor board was that they laid them off based on seniority, and the board refused to issue a complaint in these cases on that basis. But I believe we've got them on the other end of it now. They had some openings and they failed to recall by seniority the same people they claimed they had laid off by seniority. So we filed some new charges on the basis of failure to recall properly. And this just went in this week. So it's our intention is to stay pretty close to that situation for the next year. And anybody that gets fired and we got a charge, we'll file it. And really police it to, again, reassure the people of Brother Grantham and Greenville that we not fly-by-nighters, that we'll see it through.
The people are real proud of the way that you stayed in there this time, because they didn't like it at all the way that
The last group handled
last
it. I don't
few
blame
times it was. They'd come in and stir up a little interest, just move off, leave the people, and they fire some of them.
So that one we feel pretty good about. With the fax business, we got a few more votes than we had cards. We knew we never could get a majority, and we didn't want to just walk away and not vote it. So we petitioned with around 310 cards, and there was 50 or 60 quit after that, and we still got 349 votes. That's very rare that you get more votes when you got cards, but in this one case, apparently we did. Now to the strike situation, I'll be as brief as possible. First, let me say I appreciate everything all the different labor organizations in the state has done in regard to supporting the strike. We are still getting donations in. They're slowing down a little bit now, but we... But we are maintaining, you know, the important thing is people have to be paid. Claude, I believe this company will finally go completely out of business before they'll deal with us. And we've already had some experience on that. You know, we had one situation in Louisiana and 2 in Mississippi we had out on strike. In Bernice, Louisiana, 3 weeks ago, right during the middle of the day, and I've been in this business a long time, I've never seen this. Company shut the plant down right in the middle of the morning. They didn't even wait till lunchtime. They didn't wait till 4 o'clock, nothing. If a girl had a shirt in her hand, fixed to sew a pocket on it, they told her to lay it down, and they marched all them scabs out of that plant by our picket line and closed it down forever.
Shut the plant down completely.
And they've now leased it to another non-union company who's going to move into the building. Of course, we've got various charges filed in regard to the company's failure to properly negotiate with the union over the effect of the closing on our members and so on, and the labor board will have to deal with that. But I think this is a trend. I think they may close them all before it's over, and this is just, I'm sort of guessing here. As to the Shaw situation, they finally was able to get enough of the scabs to sign a desert petition, and this is a sad part of a situation like this. If there's any way the law could be changed to protect people in this area, it would be very valuable to any union. You can go in there and win an election, you can bargain your daylights out, and then when you can't get a contract, you walk your people out on strike. Then all the company's got to do is to fill it up with scabs, pass a desert petition among the scabs, and petition the labor board, and they'll grant you an election. Then in an economic strike, all of the people involved can vote. Well, as long as they've got as many scabs in there as you've got strikers, then most likely you're going to lose the election.
Right.
Now, the only way you can do it otherwise, if you prove that you've got an unfair labor practice strike,
Right.
then under those conditions, the replacements that are not entitled to vote. Well, in Shaw, I don't know if we'll ever resolve this question because we pulled a legal gimmick. We brought Crystal Springs out on strike first because we had some unfair labor practices pending and some being enforced by the Fifth Circuit Court. And then we waited one day and then had some pickets go from Crystal Springs to Shaw, and Shaw actually came out in sympathy with Crystal Springs. But in order to prove that that's an unfair labor practice strike, we got to prove single employer. And of course, we were certified, separately because even though Shaw Industries is a division of Crystal Springs, on paper you still got to prove to the labor board and the courts it's one employer. So if we can prove eventually that there's one employer, then we may even win the desert. It's going to be held 16th, which is week after next, I guess, or late next week, whenever the 16th is. And we're going to challenge every replacements scab that's into place. We're going to challenge their ballots. Then the board's going to have to make some determination of which ones are going to be counted before we're ever going to be able to resolve where we won or lost. And I don't know how long this will take. The picket line in Shaw is holding. None of the people is going back in the plant to work that came out. There's only about 12 people in the plant that's working as scabs that was working when we started the strike back on April the 6th. Now, the other strikers, some of them has drifted off to find other jobs, but we still got more than an ample number to maintain the picket line. Now, in Crystal, pretty much the same story, except the company has got all kinds of trouble now. We was able to get 2 big orders canceled completely from a company called Bobby Brooks Work, which makes a combination of ladies and men's, and a company called Art up in Pennsylvania. They canceled all of that work, and they don't have any work right now. In addition to that, I guess all this damp weather is creating a problem for them. They've had a couple of 3 trailer loads of shirts that's had a strange odor on them, and they've had to sell them for 69 cents a piece, which is considerably less than the piece goods it take to make them. They've sold them some dollar chain up in Virginia. I guess it's a weather clause.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Anyway, the upshot of that is that last week they shipped about 40 boxes out of that plant was all they got out, which was only about 200 dozen shirts. Now, so far in the shirts with a strange odor, there's been 7,500 dozens shirts that's had this odor on it, and it has sold for 69 cents a piece.
That's beautiful.
But the final result there may well be that they'll close them. Of course, we'll tell them on that also.
I'm sure you feel about that thing like I did about that shipyard a few years back when we were in that dog fight, and I made a threat of calling Senator Margaret Chase Smith up and about that particular thing. She was raising hell about getting all the contracts.
Right.
Somebody stood up there and said, no, don't start that. I said, well, listen, I want everybody to clearly understand that we'll see this damn all these ships move to the state of Maine before we have a non-union shipyard in Mississippi. And I'm sure you feel the same way about the damn plant.
I even feel this way about it, Claude. That company paid the least benefits of any garment company I ever seen, barring none. In a place like Crystal Springs, that plant had been there since 1934, and they was paying, when we won the election, 3 holidays. They finally got up to 5 during negotiations. But if you missed 100 unexcused hours in a whole year, you lost all your vacation rights. You only had 2 weeks, regardless of how long you'd been there. So I just said to the people, you know, it's hard and it's tough, but whatever job you get after you leave here, you will be done you a favor, because it'll be better than the one you had.
That's for sure.
So I feel like it, if they do close, and we don't know for sure yet on Crystal Springs, they're still trying to operate, they're not getting much out. We still maintain our picket line, which we plan to do till the crack of doom if they don't deal with us. You know, I feel like this, it's a message to some other employers that they'll
Right.
see it ain't so easy, that they may not
Right.
win either.
That's
So I'd rather see them go out of business than I had to see them operate non-union and with scabs.
Well, I'm
And
sure.
maybe that's a hard line to take, but that's
Well,
my
I think
philosophy.
you'll get agreement out of this board on that. I certainly agree with you.
And we're gonna stick it out. We're ready to bargain. We had a complete impasse on Crystal Springs now. At our last meeting, the company wouldn't move at all. They refused to meet any more in the future until one side or the other give. We told them we was available. They haven't called us. Now, we've got all kinds of legal stuff going on. We already had them guilty of unfair labor practices, which they had not completely settled satisfactory to the labor board. And the labor board has filed in the Fifth Circuit Court for enforcement of their original order, which came out over a year ago. In addition to that, we got a whole new series of charges filed, which the labor board has issued a complaint on. And they got a trial set for sometime in August on the new charges. And that's about it. It's not a pretty picture.
Anything we can do to help, Jim?
No, Claude, just, you know, encouragement if you happen to go by, and if there's any locals that hadn't give that could,
Well,
why
you're
then the
getting
people
into,
can still
your
use it.
response been pretty good from that letter I got out.
Yes, we still getting some contributions in, you know, each
Yeah.
week we still get something.
So it's time in our schedule permit, I wanna do a report and bring a few things up to date to the affiliates, and I'll try to throw another plug into that thing on your situation.
From our international union standpoint, since the day of the strike, I guess I've already spent about $100,000 of their money, not counting the staff, and I've got staff borrowed from 3 other states other than my own
Yeah.
to supplement.
People
you know,
holding
to pick
up
it up.
pretty good down there, aren't they?
People are holding. The ones that are having to go to work's going somewhere else. They're not crossing that line and going back into plant. We've had very little of that, maybe a half a dozen people in going into the 3rd month.
Yeah, that's good.
Chloe,
Yeah.
I'd like to say a word to the board on behalf of Joe Davis. I talked to Joe this morning before I left. He asked me to tell you that he was sorry that he couldn't be at the board meeting. Local 1028 is on strike, it's his local union. It went out the 1st of the month. And it doesn't look like there's gonna be any in the near future, any type of settlement, this type situation. It's purely economic. The company's given an offer and the union rejected it, and that's more or less a standoff. So Joe's kinda got his hands full right now, but he did want me to mention to the board that he wished he could be here, but due to circumstances, he couldn't.
Well, I appreciate that, Ron. I talked to Joe this morning myself. I was gonna report to him the same thing, so you saved me trouble. Joe, did want me to express his disappointment over not being able to be here today and explain to you why. We have any other organizing situations? I'm sure.
Claude, I might,
Woman's got one.
no, I ain't got no organizing, I'm still trying to organize Gulf State.
Yeah.
Been going on about 3 years now. I would like to report that my international has called me for some member over there or some person over there to come to Washington to testify at the Senate on the labor reform bill, and we do have the, he was the first president over there. He's not working there now, that we are going to send, in fact, that's the reason I'm looking at my watch. I've got to go home and
Get him up there?
get him ready to go to Washington Monday. He will be up there explaining what happened over there in that situation. And we still haven't got anything from Fifth Circuit on the board has appealed to the Fifth Circuit for enforcement of their order, and we haven't, it's been over a year and we haven't got a word yet.
That's gonna be no one drawn out things. I haven't got a report, recent from W.J. Smith on the Macomb thing either. Last time I talked to them, though, it appeared that they were on the verge of of getting the courts to cite Bancroft for contempt of court. It looked like they were getting ready to throw the book. I hadn't got the word yet, but that's the way that was shaping up. Now, I'm sure all of you took note that they've already had a couple of votes on cloture in the Senate the last couple of days, failed by several votes. Now, the people in Washington,
They about 11 yesterday.
right, the people in Washington seem to be rather confident that after about the fourth or fifth vote on cloture, we will get the votes. Now, I don't know what they're basing this on, but this seems to be the attitude up there. And that's gonna probably be a couple of weeks from now. They seem to think.
They
that
picked up 7 votes from the first to the second time.
Well, that seems to be their thinking, and of course Carter and Ray Marshall, you know, the administration is working on this.
Couldn't help but notice too that Big Jim
Yeah.
had to go back up there and vote against the closure, and
Well,
of course, both of our senators are voting against us up there.
I should tell you, I guess, that I went up and had a visit with Big Jim while he was home for the recess. And I told him I thought maybe I might be able to convince him to throw a vote our way on cloture, and he kind of laughed a little bit. He said, "Well, you know, I never have, and I don't think I can this time." I said, "Well, Senator, I thought because you was retired, that now that maybe you could take our side for a change in this situation." But I did kind of get an agreement out of the old man. I don't know what he's going to finally wind up doing, but he indicated he wasn't going to do anything to hurt us on the floor. I don't know where he's going to be. He indicated that he might be sympathetic with us. We'll have to wait and see.
He, you know, I don't know where you caught it or not, but it was in the candidates, right up on what the candidates was doing when was it? Last Tuesday,
Yeah.
Monday before the election, and Big Jim said he wasn't taking sides, but he had to go back to Washington to vote, and that was what he had to go back there for, is to
Well,
vote.
you see, Jim Eastland has been a strong advocate of filibuster. You know, he's fought civil rights legislation, whole works, and it would be completely against character now for him to turn around and vote to cut off debate. That's what he's saying. But I got the distinct impression he might be just a little bit sympathetic with us on the bill, is what I'm saying. So we'll just have to keep our fingers crossed and see what he does.
I think some of us about got to finish. At least I thought we was, but
Yeah.
then he waited and waited and waited before he said how he was gonna
Yeah.
vote, and then he finally said he was gonna vote again.
Well, you know, I had a long meeting with him.
He wrote a hot letter to everybody that wrote him and said he was.
Yeah.
But that's-
I got more confidence for some reason we're gonna get more out of Eastland we do out of Stennis. I could just be wrong as hell on it, but that's the feeling I get. I've met with both of them.
I have a feeling we may have a special election to send us Dennis to see before this 4 years is out.
Yeah, we liable
I
to.
think he's about ready to throw in the towel. His wife is in a nursing home in Meridian, bedridden, I understand.
Yeah.
And,
Either that or he'll retire and
I
it'll
think
appoint
he,
John Hampton to that.
I think he'll probably retire maybe
Tired,
before
was
this
out
4
to
years.
appoint his son.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get Maurice Denton elected, it ain't gonna be long before we have another spot to work on.
Claude,
We-
Ain't been
yeah.
there since.
what type of concession that Senator Bud is planning on making on this bill? I was reading the paper this morning.
It's in this morning's paper.
Yeah, he's
I-
planning on making some concession. on this
I'm
bill.
not too sure what they're doing on
Huh?
that, but
The article I read spelled out what the concessions were.
Yeah.
This morning in the
I
Clarion Ledger.
probably
it's in
didn't read
there.
all of it.
I didn't get a chance to read it. I haven't got a chance to really look at the morning paper.
What,
They're trying to do something to pacify the small business people.
Main
I
thing they're
guess.
gonna do is spell out in the law the
That's right.
jurisdiction clearly that's just been a board rule. That's one of the
That
first.
is.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
They are spelling out in the law, amendment to the
Yeah.
labor reform law that, like James said, it's been a board rule and they spelling it out to put it
Make it
part in there to
statute.
satisfy these small business.
It was something in there.
They're
about
also
government
gonna water down the
contracts, too.
penalties some
Yeah,
and
we're
a
doing-
couple other things.
I don't think they can do anything satisfying.
They're gonna
Hack.
limit to some degree the
Yes,
right of
yeah.
entry into plants that's in the original bill. That's another one of the
Did they
changes.
have a primary affair June second?
Where?
In
Yeah, of
North
course.
Carolina.
Yeah.
Helms was on the pole.
Well, they had some guy was supposed to be running against him.
Well, they selected a Democratic nominee. He didn't have a
won.
Republican.
Helms didn't
Helms
have
is
a
Republican.
Republican.
see.
Okay,
Yeah.
oh, so they got the guy.
They think old Wilbur Humphrey thinks they got a shot at
Yeah.
Helms this time.
Right.
Claude, just
Yeah.
to supplement what Brother Orman said, we had a girl from Crystal Springs go to Roanoke Rapids when the House was holding their labor
Yeah.
hearings on that bill, and she may go back to Washington while the Senate's.
Well, I understand what they're doing with these people is really lobbying them. The
Yeah.
people have been
Yeah.
caught in these things, they're really, and they're being very effective
Right.
in lobbying them. That's what I understand that they're doing.
Yeah, we got
Instead
one.
of testifying, actually carrying them in and
Business
talking to
accomplishment.
individual senators
But this thing in Roanoke Rapids was actually
Yeah.
testimony before the House committee.
when it's considered a bill.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, do we have anything else under organized and related matters? Brother Kelly was not able to make the meeting. I'll report in his behalf. You know, he organized a fish processing plant in Pascagoula a few years back. Don't ask me why. They wanted
I imagine
union,
he wonders too now.
they wanted union representation. But I talked with him yesterday, and he advised me that he had a problem there and that he didn't think he'd be able to get loose from there. And then he also told me that the machinist, along with the help of IUD, Jim, is getting ready to start a campaign with Nico and Hattiesburg and perhaps the whole damn work.
Well, it's about time. I've been
Yeah.
advocating it for a
He's got a
couple of
meeting
years now.
set in Hattiesburg tonight, I think, to start that.
I even give Bart some names in there once.
IUD is involved in it, of course.
Makes all
And of course, he lost Phillips milk and magnesia, so he has to take Carter's little liver pill.
I knew he voted some of this last years back.
Lord, I'd just like to,
Yeah,
I'd just like to report briefly.
Yeah,
let's have order.
the same kind
The mighty wants the floor.
I'd just like to make a little brief report on the situation at the building trades. Of course, many of you, well, I don't know, you may or may not know, depends on whose mail you're reading. But a lot of this anti-labor campaign that we know has just probably got more strength and they're more determined now nationally than they have been in the past, and spending millions of dollars out there is directed more so first at the building trades than anybody, and they're out to completely destroy the building trade, it looks like. And of course, the states like Mississippi, where we were weaker to start with, is always the states that feel the effect greater and first than other sections of the country, though we got problems in the building trades industry all over the country. Our particular situation here in central Mississippi is this. A few years back, though, that we didn't have the best conditions and so forth and so on, practically every general contractor that did business in the Jackson area did it under a union contract of some kind. We did not always push to hold them as tight to those contracts and so forth, you know. A lot of union folks in Mississippi just likes to deal around the fringes of being union. But here a few years back, some of those contractors started going open shop. Every contract negotiations that's come up, some of them would drop out, serve their notices, and because they had, some of them were family type operations, or they had people that had been with them for years and nothing much ever happened about it. But at that time, there's only about 12 or 15 general contractors of any consequences in the building industry here on the type work we've well been in. We haven't controlled no residential construction and so forth for years. Well, it's just come on down to the point now to where we're in contract negotiations, and every single local contractor that we've got that is in the AGC, which is the contractors bargaining, agency, except one local contractor has signified their intent to not be bound by that agreement. Now, there are still some local contractors, a few, who through letters of assent or signing individual agreements has been working with us. And we've got our work cut out for us here, and the situation is this. It's coming about at a time when there's least work going on in Jackson than there has been in the 12 to 14 years I've been associated with this area. And for some reason, though, there's not much work, but there's just, every time you turn around, there's somebody new getting into the general contracting business. And there's, where it used to be about 12 to 15 contractors pretty well had to work here when there was quite a bit of work. Now you've got 75 or 80 contractors out here, just union and non-union alike, just beating each other's head. You know, and no contractor is getting any work of any consequence. And so we've got a real tough situation. Some of the local unions is going to be in real bad shape here if we can't turn the situation around. Now, there's a couple of locals, mine's one of them, that due to the fact we cover a large area and we've got some big jobs going on, the local union itself is going to be able to withstand several more years, whether anything goes on here or not, in an effort to, you know, maybe to turn the situation around. But there are some local unions that don't have that much territory and all, that's looking pretty well at what happens in the city of Jackson. And I'd venture to say that several of our local unions here pretty soon, if we're not able to do something, is going to not be able to afford a full-time representative. And a building trades local union that does not have a full-time representative, I mean, that's just before the end. That comes just before the closing of the door. So, of course, we have had very good help from you and Tom in the past, and I know that anything that comes up that we call on it will be. But that is a very serious situation we've got facing us here.
I'm very much aware of it, Ralph. You're exactly correct. You really got your back against the wall.
Well, of course, you know, it's like I've told some of our building
Yeah.
tradesmen, you know, when we're moaning and groaning about it, I said, well, you know, I said, it just come our turn. I said, you know, we were guilty for years of walking around with our heads up and our chest stuck out. We were the big folks in the labor movement, you know, and we're just getting the crap kicked out of us now. So.
We got another situation too, Ralph. I don't know how many people are aware of this, but there used to be a law in the state of Mississippi that a resident contractor, you know, domiciled in the state, could take on a non-resident contractor if he was in a certain percentage and take the job at his price if he so desired. Since we've got the governor that we've got now, they've done something with this law. Maybe it's been voted out or something. But we don't have any state work now that I know of. It's being done by local, as we'll call them, contractors and union people. At Mississippi State University, you got $14 million worth of work. It's every bit of it's out of Florida. Dyson, Baracco Electric, and somebody like that. This is what I was telling that. I want to call him something, but it's some ladies here. But I reminded that Mr. Finch the other day when we sat across the table from him with this too. And we called on him. I called on Claude. I called on the building commission, the architect. Now they got $8 more million coming up. Yeah.
He acted like he had never heard of it.
That's right.
Go ahead and call him by his right name. We all know what it
When
is.
he
Well,
had committed to you that he'd sign an executive order to
That's
create prevailing wages on state buildings.
I just refer to him as a rabbit-ass governor now. That's not going to dig in.
Much milder than I thought you had in mind.
That wasn't really his name,
Strike that
but
from
go
the tape.
ahead with that.
He said it might be a good idea, and he never had thought about it.
We-
That's why he answered you that something.
Okay, right in the near future, it's still $12 million going to that veterinary science building. Right now, it's $8 million and $4 million.
Well, that law is still on the books, that 5% law is still on the books. The only thing is, they've made it has to be a state that has it reciprocal, you know.
Oh,
If the state doesn't have it, that
Well,
the
then it
contract
don't
is
apply.
from, and Florida doesn't, it doesn't apply.
I knew they'd done something to it because we had a non-union.
It wouldn't work no more.
We had a Mississippi contractor, non-union, take a state job from a union contractor from Alabama.
It has to be
Yeah.
on a reciprocal basis anyway.
Mary Nell would like to have the before. Could you give her your attention?
That is if you're through discussing the contract for building and trade. I would like to report that the A. Philip Randolph Educational Department is in the process of setting up an office here in the Jackson area. We will be hiring at least 3 people. And the purpose of this is to educate youngsters between 16 and 20 years old and try and place them in something similar to RTP. It's a necessity of working, and that try to place them on jobs not for tomorrow but for the future. Familiarize the people with the civil service test, public jobs, and what have you. It's a 1-year plan, and we are supposed to, in Jackson, place at least 35 people within that year. This program is being set up in 8 cities. It's a trial program. And mainly Mississippi and Jackson was chosen because of the cooperation that we've gotten from the AFL-CIO and the work that we have done in this particular area. We're going to ask for the support, from all board members, all local unions, and try to make this program work so we can be refunded another year and continue to try, because as you know, that some of our major problems are with teenagers not working, not going to school, and what have you.
Yeah, we had a conference yesterday with Chuck Brammer, who is in here to set it up. Some of y'all might know Chuck. He was involved in the Pascagoula program. He worked for RTP at that time. He helped us set up that program, and I had seen him for several years, until yesterday. So he was in the office with Charlie and Seatsman. We and Tom and myself, we had some discussion about the program. I haven't read the whole proposal yet, but I like the concept, and I think it's a very worthwhile thing. And I assured Chuck and Charlotte at that time, from my point of view, we'd do what we could to help them. If you'd like to get the board on record for the program, I'd accept the motion.
I'd like to answer a question, Paul.
Yes.
Since this type program is doing the same practice RPT doing, which is recruitment and tooling these people and refer them to various places, why will the they feel a Randolph, who will they refer these people to once they have recruited them, tutored them, and for what, who you gonna refer
What we
to?
would do is go to employers and ask what job they have available.
I mean, what field of work you gonna be in?
Any and all, public, private,
There.
railroad, hospital,
Are
any.
you gonna be doing it in the construction field?
If necessary, if there's openings, and as for electricians and what have you.
Are you gonna go to the local union, or you said the employer, or are you going to the employer themselves?
The employers are, like hospital.
What about non-union employees?
Such as what? As for the full details of the program, we don't have it all, but we're gonna try, for
You got the
instance.
detailed part about the employer, where you gonna care for that.
Yeah, wherever there's a opening, what I'm saying, wherever we can place these people.
If you can place with a non-union contract, you gonna place?
No. We are, A. Philip Randolph is the arm of the labor movement, okay?
Let me,
She was on the spot. I was
A.
enjoying that.
Philip Randolph is the arm of the
I
labor movement,
understand
and we
that.
deal
I
primarily.
I understand.
Okay.
May I say this? The program will be putting, they will be working with people from the age limit from 16 to the age of 20. And they will be putting them on jobs, whether they have a union or not. That's simple as that.
He was talking about contracting, I believe.
I'm
Non-union
talking about
contracting.
in the construction field.
well, let me see if I can get this thing in its proper perspective. Now, I haven't yet read the whole proposal. We did have the discussion. We did have the discussion with Chuck Brummer and Cecil and Charlie yesterday. I made a few inquiries, and as I view it, what they're attempting to do with this program is take some of the dropouts out of the schools, some of the hardcore unemployed, try to counsel them, and perhaps some of them will need additional education, and they'll be working with the established institution, the education people, probably get these kids, some of them back in school at least at night, whereby they pass a GED test and become better qualified to hold a job. And knowing the people involved in the program as I do, Brother Turner, I can assure you that there won't be any people placed with open shop contracts. We are very much aware of the fact that the building trades already have a contract with the Urban League, that the Urban League is supplying the building trade unions with minorities for the apprenticeship. And I have advised and will advise them that if they get into a situation where you have a young black man will say that's interested in getting into the trades, that individual will be referred to the appropriate union. If not through the Urban League, then to the appropriate union. One of the objectives of this program, and this applies to all the programs we're involved in, is that we make a special effort to educate these young people as to the benefits of the labor movement. That's going to be one of the primary objectives. If that wasn't the underlying factor, I wouldn't have anything to do with it, you know. If I thought we was going to be promoting something that would undermine the building trade unions. Now, of course, Mayor Nell, I'm sure that what you'll be doing, the Randolph, I guess, the Central Chapter was going to be the primary sponsor of this thing. You're going to concentrate primarily on organized plants anyhow and job placements before you go to rat plants or non-union plants. And we do have quite a few of those in the area. I don't think there'll be too many of these youngsters, Louis, that'll be going the building trades route. Begin with, it's going to be mostly dropouts. They don't have much education. Many of them are the 4th or 5th grade. First thing that's got to happen here is adult education and bring them up the equivalent of a high school education, GED test.
Claude, that's fine what they're gonna do, but I'm against, of course I was speaking about the building trade a while ago. But I oppose any organization, whether they feel the Randolph Institute, anybody gonna recruit people to tutor, to give them to a non-union contract, whether it's a place like Packard Electric or any no places, recruit people for them, whether it's an industrial union or construction union.
I think what we need to do here, Louis, I think I'm going to make this suggestion. I'll do it now to Mary Nell, and she can pass this on to Charlie. I really think you ought to be on their board, an advisory board or whatever they set up. I think they ought to have representatives of building trades on their board, and that I'm sure they'd welcome your input, wouldn't you, Mary Nell? So I certainly, take that under consideration. I'm sure you're going to set up some kind of an advisory board, huh?
Is this the way we can get him
Cause
funded?
I'm sure,
Well, I don't blame Louis Turner.
When you send somebody in here,
I don't blame Louis Turner. I don't blame any of you. The first thing that you have to do is protect your own interests.
That's right.
And you wouldn't be much of a trade unionist if you didn't. And I understand what Louis is saying. I'm sure the rest of you do.
We have no problem with that. We, naturally, but we, gonna try to place them where there are union plants.
But Cecil said a while ago, they gonna place them regardless whether
That's
union
first.
or
That's
non-union.
first preference. We got 35. We got 1 year to try to place 35 people.
Is this a federally funded thing, Mayor Nell, or?
Yeah.
This is, look, we're getting so many duplications of this kind of program, throughout the state. We got everything that RTP through the Labor Department, through other departments. Of course, I'm not opposed to, helping people, but it looks to me like every time we turn around, we're getting more people involved in training program with federal money, and where we're gonna put them when we get them. So we got them running out of our ears in the construction field.
You don't have to worry about a lot of them going back to wherever they was before they got to training.
This is what I'm talking about. It's a lot of money being wasted that never does any good for anybody.
Well, I think perhaps the best thing to do with this matter is to lay it on the table for the next board meeting and let me study the program and become more familiar with it, that Marinell and the rest of you, Louis and Cecil especially, be prepared to explain the program more in detail at the next meeting. I'm frankly not in a good enough position
I
at
need
this
to
point
explain to me.
to give you my candid impression of it. I recognize what you're saying, Brother Tucker, is being a definite fact. We certainly have that problem on the 10-ton waterway, and we can open up a whole new keg of nails on that one. I'd suggest that we not take that one up at this point, because some of you want to get out of here, but we will try to have a report for you on that, everything related to the 10-ton at the next meeting. We have an awful lot going on that one.
Can I say this?
But, yeah.
No, I'm not fully familiar with how the program gonna be set up, but you know what little that I do that have been explained to me, I do know that it is definitely needed, this type of program, you know, for the community. You know, whether we put the people that they recruit on jobs that are non-union, on union jobs, this type of program needs. We have so many kids, people that are dropped out of school and no job and nothing for them to do, you know, because they do not have the training, you know, to even get a job, you know. And there's so many plants that not organized that, you know, we may not can sit back and say we're not going to put, you know, the people that in a job and on job and not organized, because we may have to, you know, because people need a job, you know.
Well, sister, I don't oppose the programs that's such as for you said, but I do oppose whether you put them on a non-union construction job or any non-union plant. It's all right if you're going to school them. They can be an asset to you in a non-union plant if you educate them about a union before you put them in that plant.
Well, that's supposed to be part of the program, Louis.
This is part of the program, but you know,
It's as for educate them as for as labor.
Well, listen, we're gonna have another board meeting on the 25th of August. I'd suggest to you, Marinell, and the rest of you, Cecil, and I'll do the same thing. I'll try to familiarize myself better with that program. We'll put it on the agenda and have a more enlightened discussion on it, and then see if the board would like to officially endorse it or not. Let's do it that way, okay?
Okay.
All right, we are down to the, do we have anything else on organizing? Related matters? We're now down to the last item that I have on the agenda. Some of you might have something else that you want to bring up. This one we can dispose of in short fashion. We already set the 26th of August as the date of the Coke Convention. Brother Knight has shopped around in terms of trying to find accommodations, and we've had a problem. We've wound up making arrangements to have the convention at the CWA Hall out on Country Club Drive. And the next board meeting will be at the Sheraton Motel on 55 North. We'll make arrangements on those motels out on that side of town. That's the Sheraton, the Holiday Inn, the Passport. Those hotels out that way, those people want to come in the night before. You get on North Side Drive and cross town, you drive right over to the hall from there. So that's where the next location will be. Would you like to comment some more on that, Tom?
Well, just this, the reason for this decision, we checked with the other motels in Hamlin's, and the Ramada was the only one available on that date. And in lieu of the necessary number of bedrooms, you know, they wanted $660 for the convention hall. Well, we didn't feel like we could afford that type of fee for the convention hall. The fact that it's only a one-day convention, there'd be a few come in Friday night, a few might come in Saturday morning and stay Saturday night, vice versa. Anyway, so the CWA Hall, for those of you that hadn't seen it, it's quite large. They've got the chairs, all the facilities. And as Paul pointed out, if we use the Sheraton for the board meeting. They have plenty of bedrooms. Strawford D owns 51% of the passport, and he'll make sure that there's rooms available there for those that might want rooms. So we thought that this would work out good, and we thought that we'd probably charge a small registration fee and have lunch catered out to the CWA hall, and feed everybody and not let anybody get away from us until the business is concluded, which I'm sure will be early afternoon. And the only charge we'll have is just probably $65, $70, whatever it takes them to clean up the place, you know, fold up the chairs and haul out the garbage and all that kind of stuff. So that was the reason for the decision.
Tom,
We thought $5 restoration fee would be reasonable, and you might wanna, maybe you ought to get a motion on this. We'd set a moderate restoration fee of about $5. This would cover the cost of the lunch. We'll have it catered in there, like he said, we don't lose them. Let's see if we can get a motion on that. Motion that we set the restoration fee at $5 and cater the lunch.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second.
I just got a question. Has somebody checked on the cost of what it's gonna take to cater, and will $5 cover it?
Yeah, he's covered it.
Yeah.
If it's
We can
covered,
get
then I
it.
got no question.
We can get it for about, I don't think it'll cost a full $5. I think we can get it catered for
About
about,
$4 and
for
something.
a little better than $4, and the rest of it can be applied. We'll have to pay them a janitorial service or something. Now, they've got a nice building, in case some of you haven't been there. You're gonna really like it. It's a nice big place. It's,
Plenty of parking.
plenty of parking, plenty of room. Huh? Yeah, we'll send out a map, a directional map to get there, but you're gonna like the place. It's one of the finest union halls in the state, if not the finest. They got excellent facilities. You're gonna really like it.
We hope that the convention notice will go out, what did we say, the last week in June? See, the Constitution dealing with the regular convention provides that it go not later than 60 days. So we're going to try to beat that a few days and get it out so people can, elect their delegation and everything.
All
And
right.
I was wrong, Brother D, as I misrepresented your interest. It's about 65–70% probably.
Brother Knight, I talked with the manager at Passport at your request the other day, and he looked at his calendar and he said as of now, he didn't have anything scheduled, and he'd be glad to have any delegates who wanted to.
What
come
is
in.
it per person? Single?
Single is $15.75 including tax.
For two?
Single,
Yeah, for
Double
two.
is-
How many for two?
$20
$20.
for double,
Well, that's pretty reasonable.
plus tax, which makes 21. They don't have any,
Sheraton will
they don't
be,
have any commercial rates and nothing, it's the same rate to everybody.
Sheraton, I think, as I recall, for one person will be 19 in tax, and for two people, it's 25 or 26 in tax, so that's not bad. They're real good friends of ours.
He wanted to know how many he could be looking for and how many I wanted to reserve. I said, not any. I ain't got the money to
Don't know
pay
how many they need. So
We
you
are
got a
just,
good
But now
conversation, but that's all it
In other
goes.
words, by 8 o'clock, most of the nights, they fill.
we are just a little straight off the topic. On the motion before the House, Brother Dees, the motion before the House, that we have under consideration is that we establish a $5 restoration fee and cater the lunch. So I'd like to ask you to confine your remarks to that motion, and we'll try to get it out of the way.
I'll recall.
Do we have any discussion on the motion? Ready? All in favor of the motion signify it by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried, so ordered.
I have to take the blame for Mr. D.
Okay, Brother Knight says he shares the blame for getting off the subject. I'm trying to push this because some of you want to get out of here. I shall take it. All right, we got expense vouchers with us. We haven't got the constitutional minimum approved yet, so it's still, what is it?
10
10 cents a mile. and we fed you so there won't be any food around. Well, ain't nobody gonna spend the night, so there ain't gonna be no hotel.
Oh, he trimming it down, ain't he?
We're gonna get by cheap today.
We're supposed to have a party tonight, about half of them was gonna stay over here.
Well, all those of you that wanna party can go ahead and party.
There ain't no rule against it, are there?
Anyhow, I know that some of you want to get out of here. And unless you got something you
No, I
just
don't never turn one.
have got to put up before us, I suggest we go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Brother Cater wants to.
One thing, you know, with the problems that we probably had in some of our polling precincts too.
Yeah.
One of our fine legislators from the coast Wednesday went on TV and said he was going to introduce a bill in the legislature this year from have open primaries in the state of Mississippi. So this is something we might want to look at.
Well, we've had that one with us a long time, and what we really need is party restoration, where people register as Democrats and Republicans, and the Republicans run their own cotton-picking primary, and the Democrats run theirs. I'm not too sure about that open primary thing. It passed it a time or two, and it's been rejected by the Justice Department a couple of times. And this thing would tend really to destroy the two-party system. I'm not too sure we want to support that thing, but it's an old one, it's not the thing. Who made that statement?
Dennis Dollar.
Dennis did? Now, he better study that thing a little closer. That thing is loaded. I can understand some of his concerns, but it's gonna create some additional problems, new ones that we don't already have. Anything else? Somebody else, Cecil?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to express my appreciation of being appointed Director of Minority Affairs. I was asked when I was being appointed, what did this job pay? I won't call the name who asked me that, but it maybe a little bit too close to me. But really the job pay, you pay to the job, dedication. And out trying to do something to help, people that really need help. I like to say that I don't want to just have the name or the title of being Director of Minority Affairs. I like to put together a program, a type of program that this board will approve of, a type of program that I can go in and help your local union, all the local unions in the state to involve the minority members, not just the minority member, all the members, because we cannot have an effective and a strong labor organization without all of our members involved. I feel that being a Director of Minority Affairs or being a minority, that you're involved in an organization, whether you're a minority or not, without working together, it cannot be an effective organization. I feel that if I can get the support of this board, that I want to be the best Director of Minority Affairs that AFL-CIO ever had. And I want to put together a program that we can work together on and involve our peoples and have one of the strongest labor movement and have a program that we can educate our membership, that when we have a problem or have an election, they won't have, that it won't be that we don't know who or what to do. We will have our people together, that when we go to the poll or put on a voter registration drive, we will have people that are working and getting the job done. And I appreciate, the opportunity to being appointed, and I, want to serve you and do the best that I can.
Well put, Cecil. I'm sure everybody here appreciates those remarks. We have every confidence that you will do exactly what you said. We appreciate it. Anybody else?
I would like to add that if he's dealing with the union, we are the minority, whether we black or white, so he's dealing with everybody.
There you go.
I was sitting there
Now
just running through my mind.
We-
You know,
Before
how do
you
you
all-
separate us out from the minority?
Before you all jump up and leave, I want to ask the Cecil and Maridel and Ralph and Cecil and Brother Dees and Brother Touchstone, if you can, to stay back here a few minutes. We won't take but a minute. We want to try to set a time and a place for us to get together with on the 4th District. Anything else? If not, this meeting stands adjourned. God
I tell you, I want everybody's help, and I want everybody's support, and I want it officially, unofficially, and any other way you get it. Y'all, let me get a glass of water, getting old. Let me see.
So,
Any old?
We got some water down there.
some right here.
Yes, sir.
Let me get a sip.
Some water up there.
Y'all, my.
I think that coffee's cool, Governor, I think.
Yeah, here's some water here.
Here's some water.
Yeah, here's a little water here if you.
Big crowd.
Yeah. Hi.
I'd like to beg to be excused. Our pastor retired, and I'm on that program this afternoon. The Father Parker had a retirement program for him this afternoon,
Okay.
and I would like to be excused if possible. I've got about 10 minutes to 5, and start
Okay.
at 5 o'clock.
All
And I
right.
would like to apologize to the
We hate
people for
that you got to leave, but.
Let me tell you what, I want to
Yeah.
look you straight in the eye, and I want your help. I don't want you to any question, every one of you, individually, collectively, and every other. You understand?
Well, do we have any other questions to the governor?
Let me ask you one.
Yes.
I was recently in a delegation from this state that visited all of the congressional delegation that would see us.
That
And-
would
and-
see.
That would see us. And that was, two that we couldn't see out of the senators and representatives. And the issues that we addressed ourselves to were things that help poor people, help working people. And out of the entire Mississippi delegation, I might say we got just about a total no. About the only thing we can get any favorable answer from them on is one issue where we, in my industry, we stand, the union and the company is standing together, and that's telecommunications. But other than that, no fault insurance, fair foreign trade, things like that, we can't get, we just don't get a yes answer out of the Mississippi delegation. Now, is that what we'd have to live with you up there?
You'll get an answer, whether you like it or not, you'll get an answer. And I tell you right now, I'm opposed to no fault insurance. I've seen it working in other states. I think the only way that we can properly have insurance, and I've been in the business, is to have uninsured motorist insurance that takes care of the same thing and not cause the extra premium that you're gonna wind up carrying. You ask the people in Massachusetts what they think about it now. Ask some of the other states what they think about it. That could possibly be with proper minimums, I might could vote for. I could not vote, and I tell you, and you know, that I understand what you're talking about. You probably want me to say I'd vote for it, but you want me to be honest, and I'll always tell you the honest dang truth, so that I can sleep at night when I go to bed. It may be 3 o'clock in the morning, but I can sure sleep.
Well, what I'm saying is this, though. Now, we're lobbying for a good law. I understand the
Well,
difference
what you
in
call
a
a good law, I
and a
may
bad
disagree
law.
with you, but I'll sure tell you I disagree with you.
And not just that issue. I'm talking about all the issues that we're lobbying for, which are issues for working people. And what I'm saying is we get a no answer out of the Mississippi delegation. If there are congressmen in other states that can vote for these things, surely they must not be 100% wrong. And that's all issues, not just the one.
Yes. I understand, but
And
I've
I
always,
just wonder if we'd ever get a yes answer out of somebody from this state.
I think that is a good point to make. But I can tell you, I will give you my honest answer in every case, whether it's what you would like to hear, but my answer will be, and my statements will be made on all people and not just a small group, special interest group of any kind. And you know that, and I think that's what you want me to be. I certainly will always be honest and try to explain, and if you can convince me where I'm wrong, then I've been wrong more times than I've been right. I guarantee you. And that's the reason I'm not ashamed to tell a person when I'm wrong, and not ashamed to let you know the buck stops here.
Governor,
Yes, sir.
I said I wasn't gonna say anything, I want to give the board.
Never heard my Baptist preacher not say it.
And I'm gonna try not to preach a sermon, because I could ever more and put one on.
I know you can.
I think we've talked in our conversation with you, and I don't mean to be critical of you, well, I've said this
Well,
to
don't
other people.
be critical too.
I think we misconstrued the things that we're talking about when we're talking about economic issues, organized labor versus non-union. I think there's a misconstruction, and this is not just you. You understand? I think it's a total misconstruction, a universal. If you look, and I've got to brag just a little bit, if you look at the program of the labor movement, not just today, but on back from the very beginning, right on up, you'll find that 90% of the legislative program at the local level and the federal level that is espoused by the trade union movement really benefit those workers that have never been a union member. You see,
I agree to that.
I think you will agree that you have some people on your staff, and I don't want to be, I'm not going to get into personality, but I think you'll agree, and other governors have had too much, people on your staff that work overtime, separated the program of organized labor from everything and everybody else, as to say, and they say it in many times, in many instances, in many ways, that this is strictly another gimmick to give George Meany just a little bit more hope on the tail of this country and finish turning the country over to him. For instance, in the current argument over labor law reform, and I don't want to get into that this evening, but the opposition says that labor law reform will finish giving George Meany the total country. When the truth is, and the facts are, labor law reform only will finish guaranteeing those rights to these tens of thousands unorganized people out here who have never had that right, free of harassment, to the access of collective bargaining. It don't help the members that are in this room. You see what I mean? So the same thing applies to minimum wage, increased unemployment, the CETA program. You was talking about the money coming to the state. That was enacted in the Congress of the United States with a total lobbying influence, if we've got any, of the AFL-CIO. Yeah, we've got one proposal of the South Mississippi Building and Trades Council that's been in Mr. McMahon's office for 3 years. They even lost the darn thing. I have talked to Bob Perry. The people from the coast have talked to Bob Perry. Claude and I and others have been out and talked to Harold McMahon. We have bugged everybody. I've talked to at least a dozen of them good-looking girls you got working. You know what? That program hadn't been funded yet. It hadn't been funded yet. Even one of the members of the staff, lo and behold, told somebody, says it's a violation of the law for us to fund a labor. If that didn't happen, I'm not sitting here. I'm just talking to you as a friend, you know? Well, we have really got some things lost in the shuffle. you know?
And let me say that, and I'm sure everything you're saying is true, and I agree with you. But there's some positive sides too, and there's also, depending on some staff members get things done, they're like getting some of the phone calls back through that don't get it done. I am not familiar with that particular program unless it's the one that we're trying to set up the training center. Recently, you said 3 years, and that couldn't
This
be
is an
one.
outreach program of the building trades. And I mean, these people, you see, wherein a lot of our federal funds are put out, you know, and the intent is good. And for instance, public service, you know, after so many weeks, they're out of a job, they may be back doing their thing, whatever it was. But this particular program, they've got 112 job slots down there that are waiting on people, you see? There wouldn't be no, you're not just training people for a job that you don't know whether it's there or not. With this particular job, they got 112 slots for skilled tradesmen out there waiting and ready for that person who has been trained to step right into a heck of a good job. See? That's what concerns us so much about that particular kind of a job, because it's not just a shot in the dark, you know, hoping that we'll train somebody and there just might be a job next week or next month come along that these people will fit into, see?
I understand.
And that just bugs the heck out of you, you know.
I agree.
When, you know, we've pulled everybody's leg, we've thumped everybody on the shoulder, we've called everybody. I have just bugged the heck out of about that program. And like I say, it's been in for 3 years. Bob Perry, I've talked with Bob, and Bob said, well, heck, it's one of the best proposals I've seen. They've rewritten the thing. Beats me.
What's the name of the proposal?
Well, it's outreach proposal.
Is that the
And
name
I
of
understand it has to come, that particular program has to come from certain funds at your discretion. Governor's discretionary.
You know, when I found out I had some discretionary funds, when I went to testify before Congress about a month ago, boy, they got these old bureaucracy, man, we got just bad bureaucracy in Mississippi. We got more than they, except not quite as much of. But I knew that I had some discretion. Of course, it had been used, and I think properly, like, you know, the handicapped people, the handicapped. But you have a tendency, even your own staff has some from you once in a while, and I'm not being critical of them, but what I'm using is to substantiate what you're saying. I realize there's a lot of truth in it, but I will find out about it.
I'm gonna have to.
What I'd like to do is sort of make a statement instead of put a question to you. You answered one of the questions a while ago that you were for the working people of Mississippi, not necessarily the organized. I'd say that, well, that's what I mean. But 99% of our work in our programs here is for the working people that's not organized. The programs that we've introduced here for the last several years, they don't really help us. The unemployment insurance and the workman's comp, I'm already drawing 80% and $110 a week for it because I've had it in my contract for several years. And that's, I mean, well, I don't really know how to put it, but I mean, that's our purpose anyway. It's working people. And I don't mind the highway patrol coming out there at my picket line. If he's there as an unbiased law to keep the peace and to enforce the laws. But, well, in my case, I'm from Tupelo. It was probably the city police. They came out there and sat with us, and most of the time they did an unbiased job. But occasionally a truck driver would come through there and shoot a pistol in the air and have a big German police dog, and they never said a word to him. But if one of my people stepped out of line, well, he was in the kingdom. I mean, I agree. If we get out of line, okay. But if they're there, I'd like to see them as an unbiased, just peacekeeper.
Every one that you've ever seen that I had in knowledge, I could have had just the converse of that. It's always been in in that.
I know
same
for a
capacity.
fact, probably back in the early part of your administration, there was some up at Corinth and probably you did remove them, so.
Darn right, we removed one pair that did, I guarantee you, any state
Bob
law.
Woodson got his hand up down there.
Well,
Governor.
I would, if you have time, I would like to ask the governor one question before we cut it off. Governor, I can understand that politicians sometimes do a lot of things that's politically expedient to their existing political career or whatever political ambitions they may have for the future. You came in, you gave us an explanation as to why you never got the Industrial Relations Department off the ground. We know that you failed in your effort to get gubernatorial succession through the session of the legislature. I believe now you are entering into the third year of your term as governor. Of course, without gubernatorial succession, we recognize that you have become or has become what we call a lame duck governor.
Really, you're a lame duck the day you take office in Mississippi.
Right. So, if you're not elected to the Senate, and I know what you've done, that's good, you want it to be in existence after you left the governor's office. But in case you're not elected to the Senate, and you remain the governor of the state to finish your term, are there any hopes or possibilities that you will put this executive order into effect before you leave the governor's office?
Even if I go to Washington by January of next year, I still have hope to put some part of it in it's to put some people on there so that it can be enforced and be of help. And that's something that I feel that's once I have, and I told you, and I think it can be done if we do so just ease into it, so to speak, without trying to make big headlines with it. And whether I go to Washington or not, that has no bearing upon what I'm trying to do. And I didn't come down here to tell you. I more or less wanted to come to tell you the why, because I would have felt like you felt that Cliff Finch shunned you. And what I really wanted to come, first of all, to look you straight in the eye and tell you that I would never treat anybody. I try to treat everybody like I'd like to be treated. And to answer your question, yes, whether I am or am not, with the good Lord's help and your help, we're going to be in Washington. But we hope to have, and we expect to have something to go forward on this executive order before January of 1979 anyway.
Thank you, Governor.
Governor,
Good question.
we appreciate you coming by.
I just appreciate y'all letting me tell, because I heard one time y'all wasn't even gonna let me talk to you. Man, I said, man, that don't sound like my friends. At least you can be mad at me, but you can let me talk.
No, I just didn't feel privileged to extend an invitation to Bob, to you, without being approved by the board.
Sure.
That was the reason.
Oh, I understand, and I know, Claude, I know.
We had a little discussion here and decided that, as a matter of common courtesy, if nothing else, we ought to extend to you an invitation to come by.
Which
Yeah.
the same equal.
Yeah. Well, I know you've got a lot you need, and you got some other folks waiting on you
But
now.
let me tell you, if y'all, anytime,
Yeah.
I never, you call me first.
Yeah.
From now on, I ain't gonna trust nobody but you, by God, you calling me.
Yeah.
Any one of you,
Yeah,
but
well,
now
it's
that,
unfortunate,
I do
it really
appreciate
is.
all of you staying and listening. I love all of you. Actually, most important is that you understand the truth about it.
We learned one thing, and that's what happened on the Department of Labor. Now, he says, if you noticed, I brought him back to that, want him to tell me who threatened vetoing all executive orders, turns out to be the legislature.
Yeah, but why couldn't he have told us that, Claude? Why'd he have to wait 3 years?
Well, I agree with that. Why now? But I'll tell you what I intend to do. I intend to check this out further. You see what I've done up to this point. I've checked with the House Appropriations Committee to find out if any effort's ever been made for an appropriation for this department.
Nah.
And there's never been any such effort made.
I'm gonna call
But I
Carol
intend to
Ingram
find
and a
out.
few people I know too and ask them
I
if it's
intend to
discussed.
find out who in that legislature is threatening canceling out executive orders.
Well, you know, he implied that the reason he didn't let us know, now, he didn't say it, but I got this out of his conversation.
Yeah, but I asked him a direct question, Bob, why was it a secret? And he
Yeah.
never did answer me.
Right, he never did answer,
Right.
but he implied, I think, now, I might, be reading the wrong thing, that he had intentions of still trying to ease it in.
Yeah, well, he said
And
that.
had he told us why he didn't do it, that, he was afraid that Labor might make big headlines out of it. It would hamper his efforts to ease it in. That's what I got out of it. He didn't say that.
We don't need that stupid thing anywhere.
But the sad part of it was he didn't even remember the prevailing wage raise that Brother Tucker brought up. And the man sat there and raised his hand that he'd put an executive order on.
We got it on tape.
Yeah, today he said he never had thought about that.
Not since that interview.
Well, we got it all on tape. I just think to remember what he said.
I do too, I was
Well,
there.
he told some lies, there's no doubt about it.
So a man makes a definite commitment on a major issue and he don't even remember discussing it, I don't know.
I tell you, he couldn't say that. He couldn't just say that was for the union.
No,
I don't-
Non-union people would make
they'd get the prevailing wage raise too if they was on the job.
Alabama's got it, it works fine.
If these state senators and representatives could put in a press
Yeah,
I
right.
can't understand the governor don't know what's going on.
about
Yeah.
this governor.
Succession,
thing,
right,
and you have a
right.
bigger fight for them.
There he is.
Yes,
We was waiting till you get here to
I
call
think
this
you're
meeting
right,
to order.
Russell.
Let's
I
see
agree
who
with
we
that.
short. Still got phone?
When he gets too many of the wrong people in his.
Anybody beside Tom ain't here? Well, I'm not, who am I to call the governor of Mississippi a liar?
Might as well, all the rest of us have.
But,
Doing a good snow job.
but, if they don't have any more communication there than this, and a better communication than they've exhibited here, we're in a hell of a predicament. Now, I did the same thing with his campaign as I did with everybody else, followed the same criteria all the way through. And that was to contact the campaign manager of each candidate who maintains their schedule, engagements, knows where the candidate's supposed to be from day to day. And those are the people that I worked out the appearance with for the other candidates. I followed the same criteria with Finch, and I had one heck of a problem ever getting a telephone call returned. And it was after the second call I debated with myself, frankly, and talked to a few of you before I made that second telephone call. And then it was 2 days later that they finally returned it and got Bob Perry on the phone and set the schedule up the day before we were supposed to meet with the candidates the day before. Remember that. On the 18th, we made the time, set the time for him to meet. And now they say that he didn't get the message.
Mr. Chairman, I tell you exactly what happened. Last week, they had Eastland retired down in Meridian. The Eric Henry got on the reason why he got on the phone and called him about having people. Got on the phone, actually why he didn't be with the committee.
Yeah, well, they got a communication problem. There's no question about that. It's not our problem, it's their problem. And I think everybody's admitted, nobody wants to admit who's responsible for the snafu. Well, we still have a decision to make here. We simply interrupted our session to permit the governor to come in and talk. That's where we are. we still have to make a decision on whether or not we're gonna make a recommendation to the convention tomorrow morning. And I think we all agreed here to delay a decision on that till after we'd heard from the governor. And as soon as everybody gets reseated again and gets their coffee, we'll go back into that matter. Anybody else want coffee? We're getting off to a hell of a start. I can see you there.
We go to Thursday probably.
I gotta go home.
You can't go home.
You gotta stay with us, buddy.
Stay, we sign it out.
Hurry up and make arrangements for him to go pick up Jay Clay. You see, he's coming in at 6.
Let's get on with this thing.
Well, we better hurry up. Got 'em up, she just slung her up to a median.
Okay.
They wasn't supposed to be doing that. They was about to leave.
Boy, I'll be in a heck of a mess on that. Ooh.
James, it's all your fault for just listening.
Yeah, I know it. It always is.
Are you ready to go, gentlemen, ladies?
Ready.
Drive on.
And we call the meeting to order.
Right.
The question of what you want to do about the senatorial situation is now before you. Do you want to start with the report of the executive committee, or do you want to start on something else?
Start.
Supposed to be mailed out.
The report was mailed out to each one of you. Mail it out in order that you'll have it in your hand in order to,
Mr. Chairman, if you accept the
Digest it.
motion, at this point, I move that the committee's report be adopted.
all right, then the matter is properly before the body. Do we have any discussion?
Go ahead, it's your right.
Mr. Chairman,
Let's take them one at a time. We'll get Brother Tucker and then Brother Davis.
I'm just looking over this, Richard Sonny Tedford, is that his
Yeah.
name? His interview answers is better than anybody come before us. Whether that means anything or not.
Yeah.
He said he would support an agency shop. He would give the construction he believes that we should have the same right to picket as anybody else. He would not support repeal of section 14B. So I don't know where in the hell we're at. You know, it's a mess.
On a discussion?
Yeah, right, I told Joe he could have it next.
Okay, Joe.
All right.
You gonna sort of take it pro and
We're
con?
gonna take them as I can see the hands. Get recognition, and you'll have long as you want. I simply agree to recognize Joe behind Tucker. And then I'll get you next, Marvin, if you want it now.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
No, I defer to he and him.
I disagree with the recommendation of the committee for several different reasons. Just like I said earlier, I believe it's, we have already got a division among our own people. Personally, right now, I don't believe a 2/3 vote will carry at the convention. And I think we're gonna have more problems if we select a candidate in the primary than we are if we don't. I can't support the committee's recommendation. The governor made an explanation, of course, you know, where you buy that or not, that's one thing, but I don't think we should endorse anybody in this primary race. That's all.
May I ask?
I have promised Brother Taylor the floor next. Mayor, I'll get you next, okay?
Ordinarily, a lot of times, I believe, the chair recognizes people on opposite sides. I'm on the same side. I'm against the proposition. So if somebody else, her or anybody, I'll defer to somebody to speak for the committee's position. And then take it next after that.
Well, we can try to work it out that way. If you want to alternate on the situation, if you prefer, you could delay your recognition at this point. We'll see if we got somebody here who'd like to speak.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to defer my remarks towards the close of the debate on it as a maker of the motion.
Okay. How about you, Brother Orman?
Well, will speak in favor of the motion. I think we did. I think first of all, I was one of that made the motion that we interview candidates. It was question brought up whether we should interview candidates or not. I thought that we should interview some candidates so we could make a recommendation to our people. I know the committee done some, bunch of us had to travel long ways and travel at night and everything else to interview these candidates. We did interview the ones that showed up that was asked, and we evaluated them, and I think we all entered the thing with an open mind. I sure did. And I feel like that we have too long sat back and let our people say, well, it don't make no difference in this first primary. It don't make any difference in this first primary. We'll get together on something in the second primary. I think that we might possibly be involved with two candidates that is both skin all up, that's both got some things wrong with them that our people wouldn't like. If we wait till the second primary before we endorse anybody, I think we have a candidate that has a chance to get in there with any person that is in the race, in the Democrat race. If he gets in there with any one of them, I feel like that he can win. I didn't say he would win, I said he can win. He's the only candidate, I think, that is in the race that hasn't got something against him. Somebody's got something against him. I'm sure some people have something against him. He did, as far as Brother Tucker's concerned, I'd like to say something concerning that. I know I interviewed candidates. I believe Mr. Taylor and some of the others were on the interview committee in the second district one time when the person sent in a questionnaire that was completed, and every question on there was answered real good. I am scared. I am definitely afraid of people that answer it all together in our favor. I feel like that's the whole process, and the whole process is, and all we can do is say whether we're in favor of the board should be together, and if the convention don't go along with us, well, that's their prerogative. I don't think we should be second guessing what the convention is going to do, because I imagine everybody here is just like me. When I look in my crystal ball, it's just as cloudy as it can be, and I don't think no person can say what the convention is going to do or not do on any subject. You just got to bring it to them, and then if it's a thing, why, deal with it there.
Excuse me.
And I am in favor of the motion. That's all I have to say.
Brother Taylor, you want it now, or you want to wait a while?
About as well. I'll stand up, not with the idea. The same thing that Joe had there a while ago. Not necessarily to make a big, long speech. However, I'm going to take just a little time. But I was saying at the outset that this will probably be my swan song. I've been connected with this movement now for some years, and I've been in the position that this committee has been in as far as the interviewing and evaluation and recommending of candidates. I know exactly how the procedure is done. I've been there, and we have had all kinds of experiences, and Tom Knight would remember some of them, and we won't go into all of that. But it would be comical on some of these people that we have talked to in times gone by. Now, when we come down to this situation, in which the committee has interviewed in person what they considered the three top candidates. There's 4 interviewed by letter. Now, I'm not in a position to know at this point how anybody could evaluate except by what they have read and what they've heard and what they think that what the three top candidates might be. You've already indicated here that one of these sounds pretty good by mail. Now, I don't think anybody at this point, crystal ball or no crystal ball, is going to be able to say who's who. Now, you may have a different attitude, you may have a different input, you may have different information in this part of the state than you have in my part of the state. In my part of the state, it shapes up somewhat like this. Finch is the leading man by a whole lot. Waller is next. And I've asked some fairly knowledgeable shade tree politicians, what about number 3? Toss up between Charlie Sullivan and Maurice Danton for place number 3. That's some more crystal ball, but that's the way I get it. Now, I had made up my mind before I heard the governor this afternoon that I would not go along with the committee's recommendation. What the governor has said here has no influence on me on that part because I had already decided that I thought that was the wrong thing to do. And I say that in all good faith and for what I think is the betterment of the state AFL-CIO. Now, there's a good possibility that this man will be left out. Now, some have said, well, now, we would show weakness if we wait till the second runoff. I'm saying to hold until then shows discretion and judgment, sound judgment, based on the unknowables and the imponderables in this business. Now, I'm going to touch on something here, too, that I think might be of interest. And I'm pretty sure you might have thought about it. You may not have taken it into consideration seriously. Now, when it comes to Governor Finch, you know and I know, I believe you'll all agree, that when you come to the November and you've got some independents in there, and you've got some people that will garner quite a few of the minority vote. We have gone all out down through the years to work out a coalition between organized labor and the black community, and I think we've done a real creditable job. And we have done that when that's been the most unpopular thing at all among our own members. Now, we could very well come along here and get the rug pulled out from under us. Who are these Finch supporters, black supporters, and that's almost a cult, I'm telling you. Fact of business, I hadn't touched base with any that's not going to stay with Finch. Now, with somebody in there besides Finch, you're going to lose a lot of your coalition. There ain't no doubt in my mind about it. Maurice Danton can't carry it. I can't, Waller would carry some of it. Finch will carry some of it. I can't see Danton taking any of the Evers vote or keeping them from going to the Evers camp. Now, I'm looking at this from November. That's when the nitty-gritty is going to come up. I believe when you hear Aaron Henry and Tom Riddell talk about the party situation on this thing, coupled with the fact that if you read Aaron Henry's memo in this communication we got from the president, you're going to think seriously about what the dangers is in having a Republican senator come up to Washington come November. Now, don't undersell that possibility. Now, that's not gonna be completely, just embody the, you might say, what we think of as the black vote. You know, that a lot of us took this thing seriously about this gubernatorial succession. And we attended these legislative Chamber of Commerce coffees, and we touched bases with these people out there. And we worked for that. We thought we was going, well, that was one of the legislative objectives, and we worked on it. And of course, now, whether you're going to say that the governor set this up for future purposes, but he did set up an organization, $20 tag, gubernatorial succession, whether it was a blind or whether it was not. He did have an organization out there, and some of the people that was working for gubernatorial succession in good faith was sitting in these chambers of commerce and talking to these people, and the intern was talking to us, and we're going to find it, some of these people, like myself and others, going to find it just a little bit difficult to come along here and say, now, let's cut off and not have anything else to do with Governor Finch and his ambitions to be the senator. We took a straw vote in my local union, and without any comment, without any leading, without any persuasion, and we had a fairly good crowd for a regular meeting, took a straw vote. More than 90% voted for Cliff Finch. Finch. Name recognition. Maurice Danton got a few votes due to the fact that Maurice has got some money, and he's on television and he's on radio there, and the name is coming through to some extent over and above some of the other candidates. And so, you know, people will vote on an impulse, and it'll largely be on a name recognition. Now, there's nothing, you might as well, whether we like it, whether we don't like it, Finch don't have that problem as far as recognition. It may be adverse. A lot of areas it will be, but it's still there, and a lot of people, it don't make no difference. I know that name. Well, another thing that our people is going to be a little bit turned off if we go this route at this point. Claude Ramsey was up there, and I don't know how many of you were up there the day that Governor Finch got on the bulldozer over to Columbus Lock and Dam and rode all the way to the Women's College and stood up and spoke out in behalf of the continuous funding of Tim Tone. You may or may not remember, and I'm going to take time to call attention to this, and I'll say you'll excuse me, but this being my last whack at it, I think you will accord me this privilege. Now, you have heard this mentioned, but you might or might not have been personally involved on this savings and loan situation. Would anybody like that was personally involved, would you like to hold up your hand and let me see your hand? Well, you might have been smarter. You might have been smarter than me and Brother Underwood. But me and my wife had our life savings in Bankers Trust. I want to take time to read you a communication that triggered off a special session of the legislature and the appointment of Robert Warner, conservator, which has been the means of bringing this thing out and putting it on a level, and we stand a chance as stockholders to recover the entire 100 cents on the dollar deal, okay? Now, this is a letter that went from Senator Bill Bergen to Cliff Finch, and copies of this to Hamp King, A.F. Summer, George Dale, Ed Pittman, Heber Ladner, Horace Steele, Ben Stone, John H. Stennis Jr., Ellis Bodron, Butch Lambert, Charles Sullivan, and Senator Bob Cook. Here's the communication. I may not read it all, but I want to get enough into it that you will get the point that I'm trying to make. Dear Governor Finch, it is my considered opinion, based upon a close examination of the Form 10-K report filed by the Bankers Trust Company with the Securities Exchange Commission, other financial data filed with the Secretary of State by Bankers Trust Savings and Loan Association, an examination of the financial statement of American Savings Insurance Company, and the events of the last 2 weeks resulting in the appointment of a receiver for the association, that unless immediate affirmative action is taken by the state of Mississippi to restore public confidence in our state chartered savings and loan association, the entire industry will be bankrupt within 90 days. Since the collapse of this industry involved deposits of over $425 million and the savings of 160,000 Mississippians, many of whom are widows and orphans, such disaster would create chaos and would involve the banking industry and possibly the credit of this state. A great majority of all deposits in state-chartered savings and loan associations is insured by the American Savings Insurance Company, which is a cooperatively owned company by the association, which it insures. Since Bankers Trust has more than 50% of the savings deposits in the state, it owed more than 50% in the insurance company which guaranteed those savings and is obligated to furnish its proportionate share of any loss to the depositors. The same is true of all other associations participating in this co-op. And it goes on about some other associations. The runs on these others, for lack of confidence, would have broke the whole thing. That's really what he's saying there. Now, I strongly urge that you immediately convene the best financial brains in the state, both in and out of the legislature, to consider and devise a plan, including legislation if necessary, which will restore the confidence of the Mississippi investors and the integrity of the state savings and loan industry. Now, that's not all of it in its entirety, but I've already mentioned the fact that on the basis of that thing was done, with the result that it's on a paying basis, and in that Bankers Trust alone, there was 67,000 families that were depositors that was directly affected, including my wife and myself. So, when you look at some of these things, then you have some regard for the whole thing, taking in consideration what you've done, what you'd like to do, and what might be done, and what could be the results if we make a mistake in this thing. I think you might find that you will eliminate a lot of these problems at this point by not adopting the report of the interviewing committee. I appreciate the opportunity. I apologize for taking that much time. And I wish that everything will turn out for the best for everybody concerned. I know that you know that when I say that I mean it. Thank you.
Yeah, but we're not through. We'll probably hear from you some more yet. Brother Taylor, now, does anybody here wants to speak in behalf of the committee's report? I see Bob Woodson. You want to speak for the committee, Bob, or?
No, I'm speaking against it.
All right, who wants it next?
I'm asking a question.
Yeah,
May
you want to ask who a question?
I ask a question?
A question.
In the event that the recommended candidate were not elected, did not win the primary, what was the committee's idea on the general election?
Well, we agreed, part of the recommendations, we didn't consider whether he'd be in the runoff or not. No recommendation made on that, but we are recommended in the report that we have a meeting of the board. I assume we'll interview the candidates, the nominees for the party. We've recommended calling a convention in September, to deal with this situation at that point. I don't think we had a discussion at all on what happens if the recommended candidate doesn't make the runoff. The thinking of the committee, I think, if I read the sentiments of that committee, was that Maurice Denton impressed the committee when he was interviewed, when he ran for governor, that he had a strong following already, that with a little boost from us that he would make the runoff. I think that had perhaps more to do with that decision than anything else. Maybe he don't need the help from us. Maybe he can make it anyhow. But there are a couple of things here that the committee did kick around and did consider, and perhaps for the benefit of the board members that were not in these meetings, perhaps we ought to advise you on what a few of those things were. To begin with, we have a Republican primary going on the same time as the Democratic primary. When a voter goes to the polls this time around, that voter will have to make a decision whether or not to participate in the Democratic primary or the Republican primary. If that voter decides to participate in the Republican primary, he cannot come back and participate in the runoff Democratic primary if such occurs. I mean, it's a completely different kind of a situation. We've never had one like that before. There was further, I think, and if members of the committee can correct me on this, the feeling of the committee was that Maurice Denton is not scarred up as bad as some of the other candidates, and that he could be more electable than a Cliff Finch or a Bill Waller. The thinking is that Finch has screwed up so bad, alienated so many people as governor of this state, that if he's the nominee, then we're going to have a Republican senator. I think our committee looked at that aspect of the situation. Now, you know, it's a real tough kind of a situation to deal with. But I can tell you that the committee dealt with this thing in good faith. Curtis Orman, for instance, had to drive all the way from Memphis to make this. All of the members of this committee, except Tom and myself, had a hell of a time making these meetings. Believe you me, it wasn't easy. And they did evaluate this situation to the best of their ability. Now let me tell you one other thing. And all of this is aimed strictly at providing you with information. I have had all kinds of communication from all kinds of people trying to tell me what they think we ought to do. Some of them are trying to convince us to take no position. Some of them trying to convince us to support a candidate. I got a call from Stanley Bird on the Gulf Coast, who is president of the Building Trades Council. The Building Trades Council on the Gulf Coast was chomping at the bits to endorse Maurice Denton. I prevailed upon them not to do that, to write a letter to me beseeching the board itself to bring out a recommendation on Maurice Denton and for them not to jump the gun. The Central Labor Council in Harrison County has took similar action, you know. So there is going to be, regardless of what we come out of here with, there is going to be a considerable sentiment in that convention tomorrow to endorse Maurice Denton, whether we recommend it or not, you see. Let me read you the note that I got from Stanley Bird. I told him that I'd do that, so I'd like to do it this time, if it's all right with you all. This letter is to advise you that at the meeting of the council on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday in Gulfport, Hattiesburg and Pascagoula, I guess they had separate meetings on these days, the members decided to recommend to the screening committee the endorsement of Maurice Denton for U.S. Senator. The Harrison County, the South Central Labor Council, I understand, has took some similar action. The committee interviewing committee, dealt with this thing to the best of their ability. And the report that you have before you is something that all of you had an opportunity to have a say on before it was put into its final version. If you reject the committee's recommendation on the candidate, I still have a feeling that part of the recommendation should still be adopted. And that is that we need to have a meeting of our executive board, perhaps the executive committee, to interview the nominees of the party, and that we're still going to have a COPE convention perhaps in September. I'm still of opinion that part of it needs to be done, regardless of whether you want to go with a candidate. Okay, that's enough explanation.
Explain my views on it, the reason that I'm leaning to making an endorsement. Over the years, we've all got back down here at the convention and never taken a position in a number of these campaigns. Now, the public opinion polls show that 47% of the people out there is undecided in this race. Now, you know, we could talk about who all has got all the strength that you want to. There's never been a ex-governor or a present governor in the state real popular. Now, Cliff Finch down in South Mississippi, you can go back and look, when he ran the last time, he got about 45% of the votes against the Republican. And he only got 45% before he got scarred up, friend. I'm telling you today, Cliff Finch can't get 25% of the votes in South Mississippi. He just can't get them, because everybody loses support once they get in office, and he just won barely by 51% of the vote, so he's lost a good many of that. And another thing too, on the chances of election, was the fact that I think we only have the one candidate from South Mississippi. His chances of getting into the South and winning, that was a plus on Maurice Stanton's side. And this is all the stuff that we take into consideration after meeting for 13 or 14 hours around here. And like I said, people drove a couple hundred miles to come into these meetings. And, you know, if we're going to stay active in politics, we might as well get on a horse and ride it from the beginning to the end, because you sure won't be able to get on one primary, because half of you people's going to either be on either one of the two that's in the runoff, half you people will be on them, and then you'll never get an endorsement. That's all I have.
All right, let's say Bob pointed it.
Well, I tell you, I've just been sitting here listening, and, you know, I've really decided that nothing I could say could add to or take from what has been said. Really, I think most of the board got their minds made up as to how they're gonna vote, so I decline to say anything. I'll just, you know, leave it at that.
I thought he was gonna call for the question.
Don't do that, I'm gonna speak on it before it
Tucker had
closes.
his hand up.
I want everybody else to get through, but I want my right to speak on the motion.
Let me stand up here. I'm tired of sitting anyway. Let me say this. I'm always somewhat radical, headstrong, whatever you might say. And I've taken a position a lot of times to take no position is weak, whether you win, lose, or draw. And we sit in here as an executive committee. This don't make it right because we did it, and we try to do a job. Now that should have no bearing. I want that disregarded. And Joe Davis is probably going to frown at me now, but I say this, and I said it on the floor to the executive committee. We got sectionalism in the race. We got Maurice Stanton strong on the coast. I've even heard that Charlie Sullivan's going to carry the North Mississippi. Brother Taylor, I don't know if you've heard this or not, but Mike Hammer tells me at the Holiday Inn that Sullivan is a man. He hears it from the wheels out there at the meetings.
He's a strong contender for third place.
Okay, now let me tell you this. I'm gonna reaffirm my position. Win, lose, or draw, I'm gonna stay with the executive committee's report that we endorse Maurice Stanton.
Okay.
I'd just like to clarify one thing. First of all, when we decided to interview the candidates, I had not talked to Maurice Danton. I had not promised him anything. I just want the board to know this. I hadn't seen him since he ran for governor, to be frank with you. Since we met with him and everything else, I haven't talked to him before. I purposely did not want to talk to anybody because I felt I might be on the interviewing committee, and I didn't want to go into that committee with my mind made up or leaning towards anybody. So I just wanted, I don't know whether anybody else did or not, but when I went in that committee, I was wholly uncommitted to anybody. I could win any way I wanted to, and I made my decision to go that way from what I learned in that committee meeting with the candidates and with the other board members.
I think one thing I ought to point out to you also is that we invited Lewis Turner and Cecil Shelton to sit on the executive committee in this thing, and if Mary Bryant hadn't been up to her neck in alligators, we'd have had her there also from the Jackson area. But we did expand the thing. It wasn't just the executive committee that participated in these deliberations. We wanted as much deliberation, participation as possible. Okay, Cecil, you got it.
Mr. Chair, I would like to say that, everybody can't win. I like to refer back to our district caucus and congressional race. I lost the debate on the floor, not endorsing candidate in the first district, but the majority always win. I was sitting on the executive committee string senatorial candidate, and nobody swayed me to vote, in favor of endorsing. Maurice didn't. I voted because, his way, his manner of answering the questions, and if he didn't know or understood what the question was about, he didn't wish-washy around and tell you something that you want to hear. He said he didn't know, he studied to get back to it. But everybody got their own opinion. Everybody know how they want to vote. I feel that, that everybody here now, they got their mind made up which way they want to go. And I feel like, we say it all night and debate it, discuss it. We still won't be on got nowhere.
In other words, you give us close on. No, give me a change for
Well, you better hurry.
I'm waiting for volunteer too, brother.
I assume that the discussion we're having is for the benefit of the members of the board that did not have the privilege of sitting in on the interview. Well, that's what I think this is about.
Sure.
I would suggest that if we got a member of the board that hasn't spoken yet, it's not too clear in their mind as to what went on in these sessions, now's the time to raise some questions if you're not satisfied with what come out of the committee.
I've already spoke one time. I'd like to make a statement. Just a
Okay.
simple statement. I'm opposing the committee's recommendation. If I'm overridden and it's outvoted, I'll support the committee's recommendation at the convention. If the convention votes to support Maurice Danton, when I go back home, I'll sign up in his campaign headquarters in Tupelo.
Well, that's the kind of statement we need out of everybody.
I support that same position.
Well, let's see there.
I'll do the same thing, because whoever they support, well, no, I better not say that.
Well, I'll tell you what.
But anyway, I will go along with the interviewing committee or whatever. I'm like Joe now, if they decide on,
Are you satisfied with the explanation
Right.
coming from the committee?
yeah,
Brother
right.
Grantham, you haven't had anything to say
No,
yet.
I'm satisfied with it.
What about Brother Dempsey?
I'd just like to say that, I don't know what percent of organized labor has always voted with the candidates that the state AFL-CIO endorsed. But when we have confusion or looks like doubt among who we should endorse, that just makes the rank and file be weaker. And I think we have already lost part of the effect that we would have going with one, going with the candidate, being clear cut and decided about it, because people can get the feeling, rank and file members, that confusion at the top, and they're more apt to go their own way. And this is something that the last senator was in office all my lifetime, and we may have one that'll be there for as long as he was. And I think whoever we got a process set up to endorse a candidate, and I think that was went about in a legitimate way. And I think, as far as me personally, I would be behind the committee's endorsement, and think that everybody, if they've got the true concern for the labor movement, if that's the way the vote goes, would do all that they can to follow up with the AFL-CIO's position.
Again, this is well spoken. You got anything you want to say now?
No, I've said mine, now, whatever we decide here.
No, I want to speak, Curtis.
Brother.
I've sat here very patient.
I'd like to have one more whack at it, just for a couple of minutes.
All right, we're gonna recognize Brother Taylor again, and then we'll get you again.
Okay, fine.
We're not gonna put the question until everybody's had their chance to
Since I've been through this, I'm not going to question the honesty and integrity, and that, I hope you won't get that out of it. But I have 2 or 3 things here that I'd like to pose for everybody. Now, you base these, your high score, record in office, chance of election, who's financing the campaign, the answer to the question. Now, the person that, in my opinion, this is my opinion, that you are recommending, record in office. Mr. Danton has been mayor, he's been district attorney.
Correct.
Now, to me, that's a very limited office. And a record might be good at that point. Now, but I couldn't begin to think that he would score 4 points on record in office. Chance of election. That's anybody's judgment. In my opinion, as I already stated, he's probably number 3. So I'm at a loss as to how the committee would score that particular point, chance of election. Who's financing the campaign? I don't know whether anybody knows for sure. That's another guess. Might be educated or uneducated. The information that we get on pretty good authority is the Eastland money is going to Maurice Danton. Questions? I'm sure that the man probably scored 5 in answer to the questions. But now I'm just, since I've been through that and know your score points, I'm somewhat at a loss as to how you arrive at number 1 out of these candidates with Maurice Danton.
Well, we scored him above Bill Waller. I
Yeah.
think everybody did.
If you'd have listened to it, if you'd
Are
have
you
listened.
ready for me?
Just a minute, let me get something in its proper perspective. In view of the fact that the governor did not meet with us, regardless of what the problem was, we were not in a position to properly evaluate Cliff Finch. We didn't attempt to do so, as the report points out. Now, that left us 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans. And in the evaluating process, Maurice Danton comes out a couple of points above Bill Waller. The Republican that come out ahead in the evaluation of the 2 Republicans, I believe was Thad Cochran, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was my
Thad
last.
Cochran.
Nobody got near a perfect score.
No,
nobody got a perfect score.
No. But in answer to the question, it come down to 2 candidates. Really, we had quite a bit of discussion, and Russell Kelly, I distinctly remember, thought we ought to recommend somebody in the Republican primary. But the thing in the committee was that would only foul up the situation, confuse people's minds, and we ought to confine this to one situation in the Democratic primary. that's how we come down to Maurice Danton as being the candidate. And I think somebody here, who was it, mentioned a few minutes ago, I believe it was Russell Kelly, the fact that he's the only candidate from the southern part of the state, from Highway 80 south, and there will be a certain amount of unity behind the candidate, if you call it sectionalism or whatever you want to call it, he'll have that going for him. And there's a strong feeling, I think, that because he's not scarred up, and he makes a good appearance, and he's intelligent, and he's articulate, that he might well be the next United States Senator. And with a little help from us, he would certainly be in the runoff. That, I think, was the analysis of the committee. Okay, Jim, you want it now?
Yeah, I'm gonna stand up this time, and I promise you to be brief. It's not gonna take me long. Look, the committee did the best job they knew how under the circumstances, and I just want to give you a little bit of analysis of what I think personally, and that's what everybody else has been doing. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm not going to gaze in any crystal ball. You know, I've always been a little bit concerned and a little bit puzzled about the whole process that we go through. And I can see us, as time goes on and as management and our enemies get more sophisticated in how to divide us, what impact, if any, the labor movement has on any election. This concerns me greatly. And I've already seen here today in this hotel something that I feel is not right. I've saw prominent labor leaders walking around here already with people's signs on them before this board acted or before the convention acted. And I think them people will stay with that candidate no matter what we do. And you just well face it, we got fractionalism and we've got a divided group, and we always will have. Now what our hope has always been, or at least mine, and I think all of you know me well enough to know that my main aim has been the image of the labor movement and the furtherance of all the efforts for working people in this state. Spent my lifetime at it. But what puzzles me is, anytime you take a no position in a race, I think we're past that time in the labor movement in Mississippi. Because all you do then, your members scatters to the four winds of the earth because they said, well, our leaders was confused. They didn't know who to support, so I'm going to individually decide this. All right, there's nothing wrong with that if that's the way you're going to approach all political campaigns and just let the big pot hit the little and come out where you will. But there is this danger that I see. If you take no position in the primary, all right, then everybody's going to go their own individual route on the individual candidates, and there's about 9, I think, in the Democratic end of it. All right, now what are you going to do down the road a little ways after the primary is over? In the first place, you may well, by not supporting the candidate, eliminate some of the best candidates that won't be in the runoff. And I think that's where Maurice Danton is. I think if labor could give him solidified support, he'd make the runoff. Without it, I'm not sure. I'm like Brother Taylor, I don't know if he will. All right, that may be the only opportunity to get what we think is an honest, progressive, forthright man as a senator. But be that aside for a minute. Say we take no position. We go through the primary, all right, a certain amount of our people is lined up behind Finch, a certain amount of our people is lined up behind Waller. And then you get to the runoff, and then labor tries to get together and decide which one of these two you're going to support. Now, how are you going to get them folks off of the man that's been with them through the primary? You kidding yourself. You ain't going to do it. You ain't going to do it. So then what you're really saying when you take no position, that you just well forget this whole political race, in my opinion. Because if they are with him in the primary and they're with him in the runoff, even in November, they're going to stay with their man, whether it's what labor does or not. And then we've been here and we had a long meeting, we wore each other out but accomplished nothing. But that's the way I personally feel about it. I think our only change to do anything is to stick with the endorsement of the committee. We had 5 vice presidents, the 2 top officers of this organization, and 2 board members. 9 of the group here, which is, I guess, just about a majority, that was in on these interviews. We made the best possible analysis of this thing that we could. Now, what concerns me greatly is that when you really boil it down, Thad Cochran is going to be an attractive candidate in November. Don't kid yourself. He's got a couple of terms in Congress under his belt. He's got no serious thing in his record that I know about except he don't vote for Labor, but that ain't a minus in this state, not with the voters. Then he's going to be hard to beat, and I hope that I don't see in my lifetime a Republican senator. I'll tell you what I do believe, and I'm on crystal ball like the rest of you has been doing just once. If we get a Republican senator, I'll guarantee you we'll have a Republican governor next time. We almost did the last time. And I think that's the next thing that will happen in this state, and I'm opposed to that. I think that years and years ago, the two political parties made a definite decision about what their beliefs and philosophies were, and even though it may not be as clear as it was in the olden days, the Republican Party has been traditionally for property rights ahead of human rights, and the Democratic Party has stood for human rights first and property rights last. Well, I got to stay with the Democratic belief. I believe the human right comes before the right of property or land. And I think that's where we are. But I feel like some of the rest of you has expressed here today. Whatever decision this board makes, I'll abide by it, I'll support it, and do my utmost to carry it out. That's been my role in this organization all these years. Been many decisions made that I didn't agree with, but that didn't mean that once it was over, I didn't go out as a solidified organization to support whatever the decision is. Now, I personally feel we ought to support a candidate. I personally feel that Maurice Danton is the best candidate, and that's why I voted that way on the interview committee. And this is based on the interviews we had, the fact that we know what Waller done when he was governor. We've had 3 years of Finch. We know what he did. We know what Thad Cochran's congressional record has been so far as labor's been concerned. And of course what Pickering's record has been as far as the state legislature is concerned. Now that's the 4 people we interviewed personally. We interviewed Waller, we interviewed Danton, we interviewed Cochran, and we interviewed Pickering, which is probably, some of these guys is going to be in the runoff all the way down the line. I don't think you can rule them out. Now, if Finch had come, then we would have interviewed him and given him as much consideration as we possibly could. I don't believe the man even keeps up with what he's committed himself to. And he made to me what is a serious error in the meeting here today. Brother Tucker specifically asked him in the original interviews when he was running for governor if he'd do this prevailing wage thing. And he promised he would. Now today he didn't even remember ever discussing it. He said he hadn't thought about it. Well, I don't want a man like that as my senator. If he can't even remember an important issue like that and don't ever remember discussing it, and he'll now start to think about it 3 years after he's committed himself to the principle, then that it's very difficult for me to support this kind of a guy. But if it was the organization's decision to do it, I'd still stick with that. And I'd defend it to my members and to the rest of the world. So I made the motion that we support the committee, and I stand on that motion. I thank you for the time.
Question.
Ready for the motion to adopt the committee's report? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
So in the opinion of the chair, the motion's passed as a division of the House request.
I don't have any objection if it is.
Show of hands, one.
Well, that's a division.
Let me ask a question at this point. I assume that if you, at this point, it would be by a majority vote.
Here?
On the,
Yes.
as far as the delegates concerned, it would require a 2/3 vote, right?
Yeah.
I believe that's correct.
That is. That's right.
Requires 2/3 for endorsement by the convention.
Don't hear this.
No, it don't in here.
No,
It's just a
but,
majority here, Mark.
Majority of 2/3 vote floor of the convention. Well, in view of the amount of time that we were forced to consume in arriving at this decision,
Better get this out in a hurry.
Some advice from you. Considering the amount of time that we used here, very obvious to me that we'll never in the world deal with this matter under the time allocated on the agenda. We've allowed an hour to handle this matter on the floor. Now, this is where I need some advice from you. We've got a couple of alternatives, but in all fairness to the people that we have on our program, been invited here as our guests. Some of them have planes to catch, things of that kind. I don't feel that we should infringe upon their time if we have a protracted debate. That perhaps the alternative to the situation, if we can't resolve it in an hour tomorrow, or an hour and a half even, we could extend it over into the lunch hour, I think. That we need to give some serious thought to the possibility of a night session tomorrow night.
Oh, God, hope we don't have to, but that might be the only solution.
Well, I'm telling you.
Sure.
Yeah.
All of you sit here all afternoon, and we've had protracted debate.
Night session.
Rather do this.
It's a very serious kind of a situation to deal with, and there will be a hell of a fight on the floor because a lot of the Finch supporters are going to fight the recommendation. They want a no recommendation is what they want.
Right, I know, but they'll scatter.
Now what kind of advice do you want to give? Play it by ear?
First of all, rather, before we decide on the night session and things, I think each speaker should have a time limit as to how long he can speak for or against someone.
I agree with that.
And no speaker be recognized twice until everybody else has been.
Well, the rules would take care of that, wouldn't it?
Well, that's what I thought.
Rules for convention.
Brother Wilson's the chairman of the rules.
But I just wanted to make sure that that was brought out in the rules.
Let me have your attention a minute. The rules have been adopted by the committee. It's the standard rules that we've used for years. They're in the convention kits, I believe, aren't they?
They are.
Yeah.
All right. We can review the rules a little bit, and of course, as a presiding officer, I'm going to have to enforce the rules.
Okay, well, that's good
It
enough.
comes down to that.
That's the only thing you can do.
If you don't.
If it don't have
I was
no
just wondering why they weren't enforced here today. I tell you,
Well, we wasn't in convention. We wasn't under the rules.
Well, we didn't adopt them.
democratic process here.
Well, this matter is so serious that I felt compelled to allow everybody here today to have an opportunity to express himself or herself. I don't think any of you wanted to deny anyone else the opportunity of self-expression here. No delegate shall not speak more than once on the same subject until all who wish to speak have had an opportunity, blah, blah, blah. Now, the only thing that I can see to do here is that if we get into a real ditty of a situation, it looks like some people are deliberately filibustering the situation, that maybe somebody could offer a motion on the previous question, close off debate, and take the vote. But
If you'll recognize me after an hour, or whatever you want to do it, I'll.
Move the previous question. Right.
Are we gonna have to take a roll call vote?
Well, now, again, that's another question we have to
We ain't
deal
gonna be
with.
ready.
I'll have to, just a minute. Let me explain the roll call vote procedure to you. That is also in the rules. And if there's somebody out there wants a roll call vote, then he's privileged to offer that motion. But it'll take 30% of the delegates, registered delegates, before that's allowed. 30%.
By then, though, Clark.
That's the rules, huh?
They won't be listed on the roster by 11 o'clock in the morning.
We won't even have them all registered, they'll still be straggling in.
You'll just barely have.
Well, I'm just giving you a preview of the rules. I've reviewed these rules. I've thought about all of these kind of situations that we might have to deal with. And that somebody there would like to delay it or something and would perhaps want to throw us into a roll call vote situation. In the absence of a roll and 2/3 of the delegates present and voting would suffice. We go into a roll call vote, then 2/3 of the total votes cast would be necessary. It's a 2/3 vote either way.
Either way, right. But the roll call just takes a heck of a lot longer.
You want to kind of play it by ear?
I think we should.
Well, no, one of the rules is that it requires 2/3 vote of the delegates to hold a night session.
Yeah, I know, that's the reason I'm raising the question.
James, we're gonna have to be up all night tonight.
What I would recommend.
I don't guess the restoration committee is going to bed tonight, are we?
We ain't gonna have enough ready.
I think you might ought to, how many mics you gonna have on the floor?
2.
2, I think you ought to divide it up.
Pro and
Make
con,
it-
huh?
Make it pro and con, and rotate them and let every other
Get your
guy
time,
go one
Mark.
for and one against.
Now, let me
I don't either, really.
Let me review with you how I think we need to handle things. Brother Knight will present the committee's report. The motion will be made to adopt the report. The motion then is properly before the House. And I think it'd be appropriate to allow him to speak on the motion, either after he offers it or before the question's put. Now, as far as I'm concerned, it's up to him if he wants to speak immediately. That's all right. If you'd like to reserve comment later, that's all right. But I don't want the debate closed off without him having an opportunity to speak. Now, we got another problem to deal with. James Jackson, his secretary treasurer, Jack Shankman will be in here, be getting here about noon, a little after
Yeah, I gotta
tomorrow.
pick him up at the noon there.
And I'm assuming that you will want to pick him up.
Well, I'd like to.
And I'm assuming that you like to have a word to say in behalf of the committee's recommendation before you leave for the airport.
If it is possible.
Well, you know, as a presiding officer, I see nothing wrong with me recognizing you to speak and explain the situation. If we've had an agreement because of your thing, you'd be allowed to speak before you left.
Get to the mic first.
Well, I'll try that, but you know, it depends on where I'm at that point. I'm supposed to be making the partial credentials report and
Well-
registering and several other things.
Now, another thing, I'm sincere about this. I think it's incumbent upon the members of this board, especially those that voted in the affirmative, to support the committee's recommendation on the floor. Some of you that's against it, of course, I guess you probably wouldn't want to, but those of you that voted this thing out, I think, have an obligation of sorts to speak in behalf of the committee's recommendation.
Oh, I'll speak.
Huh?
I say the wrong thing, but I don't mind telling them why we done it.
We're gonna have to have a lot of luck to get through all of this on schedule. And I will intentionally keep my remarks to a minimum tomorrow. We'll try to keep this thing on schedule. And if possible, we'll get Jake Clayman on early. And Bart Murray is not gonna speak long anyhow. And if we get a little cooperation out of the two of them, perhaps we can get that matter before the House, you know.
Claude, there's one other
Well,
thing.
I
Tom
had
had planned to ride to the airport with me to pick up Shinkman if it's at all possible.
Well, we talked about that, but, and we would like to have him go out there with you, but I'm sure he'll understand the situation.
Well, if he can't, he can't, but you know.
Well, do we have anything else that,
Yeah, one more thing.
yeah,
I'm just assuming that everybody seated here that's an officer will probably be running for re-election except me.
Amy's not planning to.
You not running?
No, she's not.
Okay, you and me get together and have a vacation, right?
Got
You're not
another
running?
one, Dan. Got another
we'll
one,
take
Dan.
a couple of minutes
Yeah.
here on this thing. I think it's important we know what your plans are. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah. Now, what I was about to say is the State Council of Carpenters, in a regular meeting, has felt like, of course, they've known of my retirement from that organization as an active officer, as well as this one. And they have come together, and they would like to have you consider a carpenter on the executive board. And that's R.H. Grady from Biloxi. Now, if you feel inclined to go along that route, fine. If you don't, fine. I'm just bringing that to your attention. It's been a pleasure to be working with all of you people all of these years. I've been associated with the Carpenters going into my 27th year. We have been affiliated with this organization all of the time that I've been in that office. And I've been on the executive board, I've been on the executive committee, and I have attempted to serve, and I've enjoyed it very much, and I hope that I can sit in on some of your deliberations in the future as an innocent bystander. Thank you very much.
What I can't understand, Mr. Taylor, is why you retire and your hair's not near as gray as mine.
Well, Marvin,
I'll let you on to it.
Marvin, I think I can express a sentiment for the board. I've had the pleasure of serving with you over this same period of time, and I think every member of this board feels the same way, that they hold Marvin Taylor in high esteem, and all of us hate to see you retire. It has been a pleasure for all of us, but I do intend to talk to the board, the new board, about the possibility of some type of a little ceremony in your honor, present you a plaque for your service on this board. I'm just putting you on notice that this will probably happen before the year's up.
Well,
I think it'd be very appropriate.
Token of expression to put on your wall.
That's
You ought
very
to get a
appropriate.
little something out of all this time you put in here.
Right, I'm for that.
Now, Brother Dempsey
Whether
had
I'm
his
on the
hand
new
up.
board or
already
not.
been well paid.
Yeah.
I would just like to say that I hadn't been on this first term on the board, and I enjoyed being on it. And I'm not like Brother Taylor, I'm planning on being back. My problem is that in my line of work, I'm thinking of changing jobs. I've had a job offer with a non-union plant. But the non-union plant is in my hometown, and to hire the caliber of people that they've been wanting, they've been getting some solid union member people. And I think a campaign is already being talked about and being underway, and I may take a gamble on going to this factory and it being organized, and maybe I'll have opportunity to come back and run for re-election.
You're not gonna run yourself?
No, sir. And as y'all know, I'm from IUE, and there's a lady down here, I suggested putting her on a committee, Miriam Sheehan from Louisville. I don't know how many of you know her.
I know her.
But she's planning on running for the executive board position, and I'd like y'all to take her.
She has the support of IUE as a whole.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's what I think everybody needs to know is
Right.
the person that IUE wants to support. Folks that's got the votes, a lot of them are sitting around this table, they're all listening to what you're saying
She comes from the
here.
same CLU as you do. How about this Grady?
He's from the
He's
coast.
Biloxi,
He's coming from a different
Harrison County,
central
Biloxi,
district.
yeah. Right. Who, Amy?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I'm not quitting because I don't like all of you people, because I think you're the best in the labor movement. But, I think, maybe we should get some of the younger generation in this where they'll know more about the labor movement. And I have enjoyed working with all of you, and I will still work in the political area in my hometown and in the county and surrounding areas, and do anything I can to help in a political campaign that Labor has backed. And but I feel like that we need to get some younger people, because they just take the union for granted, and I think if they'll get into it and know the backbone of it, that maybe we can get more participation out of the younger people. And that's the reason I'm not gonna run our sixth reelection, but in this, and I hope that, I don't know who, I haven't anybody in mind yet to even consider, but I hope they will consider, amalgamated member to replace me, and maybe a woman, 'cause it seems like we've got more men than we have women.
Claude, I'd just like to speak to that.
That means that we'll have to have two plaques fixed up.
Yeah.
This,
What I appreciate
Claude,
that you don't
on the amalgamated board members, as you know, we haven't even caucused yet, and I don't even know if I'm running. If it's a desire of my organization to, I assume I will. If it's their desire and I don't, obviously I wouldn't. And on Amy's replacement, then they will be taking action on that tomorrow to close the session. And once we know who it is, and we would appreciate the support for our people, as we have in the past.
well, I assume that as in the past, that you folks will be caucusing. Yeah, all right, Brother Tucker.
I think it would be good to let everybody know at this time, we, you know, our Laverne Tucker, our other Laverne Tucker, never participated, very little, and, he's not business manager of the local anymore, so in our deliberations with the electrical workers, they selected Joe Davis to run for the board. They, selected me to run for vice president with the, Mayor Nell Whips running for the board from the Jackson area. So this will be our slate of candidates.
That's the candidates
From the
that
IBEW.
IBEW pushing. All right. Anybody else feel compelled to make a speech?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
At this point,
I'm gonna
Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, testing 1, 2, 3, 4, testing.
In order. We welcome all of you to the meeting. We have roughed out an agenda of items that we felt like ought to be brought up. If you got a matter you'd like to put on the agenda, simply make a note of it. When we dispose of those matters that are on the agenda, then we'll get into those there that you might want to pick up. First order of business is the reading of the minutes of the last meeting. We were a little late getting the minutes out to you because of the work we were doing in the campaign. As soon as the convention was over with, we went to work in preparing a statewide mailing, and the result of all that was Ms. Phillips wasn't able to get around to the minutes until after that was out of the way. Did all of you receive the minutes yet? Did you get them in the mail? Have you done got them? Minutes? If you don't want to read the minutes then, if you've got them, we can approve them as mailed out. If you'd like to minimize it.
I make a motion and we approve them as mailed out.
Second.
We have a discussion. Not all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion ordered. So on. The next item.
Whether or not you want a damn t-shirt, put that name beside and how many, one like Brother Cater's got on like that.
The next item is a review of the senatorial campaign. The reason that we call this meeting if you recall, at our meeting right after the convention, was to be in a position to review this situation and make a decision in the event our candidate did not make the runoff. That was the primary purpose of setting the date of this meeting today. And since our candidate not only made the runoff, but led the ticket, I guess we need to review the situation a little bit, and especially the communication that we prepared. We're in the process of preparing to mail out. We assumed that you would want to continue working for Maurice Stanton in view of the fact that he had got this far. Therefore, we went to work and prepared a short communication to go out to the membership course, subject to the approval of the board here this afternoon. We haven't mailed it, we're in the process of getting it run off. So I think the first thing that we need to dispose of is that matter. Are you in favor of doing another mail out with this piece?
I am, it had good response in my area.
Okay, can we get a motion then to approve that? All right, the motion is that you approve the mail out that we've prepared for that. And as you'll also note, on the bottom there, we've done a thing for Jay Disharoon, who is in the runoff.
Right.
All right, any discussion on that motion?
This is it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
What about the first district, was it?
Well, he was eliminated. We lost that one.
I thought so.
Any discussion? That's the only congressional race we're still involved in, is that one. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion signify it by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. Now, I think the first thing I want to do is to congratulate all of you, and a lot of people that's not here today, for the fine job that you did on June the 6th. As a matter of fact, I think perhaps this was the best job this organization's ever done politically. In my opinion, it is. And we did much better than we thought we'd do. We did much better than the candidate thought we'd do. Our primary purpose, if you recall, when we made the recommendation to get involved in the first Democratic primary, was to do what we could to get Maurice Stanton in the runoff. We assumed that Cliff Finch was the leading candidate at that point, and that whoever was in the runoff with him had a good chance of becoming the nominee. That was the main reason, as I recall it, Brother Tucker, the rest of you was in on that original decision, that we got involved in the first primary. Now, Maurice Stanton himself has publicly expressed his appreciation for this organization. He gave us credit for getting him where he is. And they have, all of them, been overjoyed at the results of this thing. They've asked me to express to you his appreciation for the fine job you did in this election. And of course, I think everybody understands the importance of continuing our work in this situation. It's very, very important that we get a very heavy turnout in the runoff. Even some folks that didn't vote, and especially to convince the Waller people and the other people to go with us. It's important for this reason. It's very important that we get people voting for Danton in the Democratic primary, because the big fight comes up in November, as all of you know. Now, Thad Cochran is a Republican nominee, and he's a very attractive candidate, as all of you know that was on the interview committee especially, and he's going to be tough. Now, I've talked with the Danton campaign people, and they're in agreement with me, or I'm in agreement with them, that there's much more involved in this second primary than just winning it for Danton. It's very important that we get people accustomed to voting for Danton, where they don't cross over and vote Republican in November. The only way that Thad Cochran can win this thing is with a large group of disgruntled Democrats. And common sense tells me, and I'm sure you agree, that if a person votes for Maurice Stanton on the 27th, that person is most likely going to stay with Maurice Stanton in November. Agreed? So that, you know, lots riding on the thing. And one other thing that I want to say to you is that I had a scheduled meeting in Washington Tuesday night, election night. I wasn't able to be here for the celebration or whatever it was they did. Had this scheduled Appalachian Council meeting. I voted and got a plane and went up there. And then, of course, Tom called me and told me what had happened. Dan Powell was in Washington, and Tom asked me to call him, which I did. And nothing would do Dan Powell. He was some kind of tickle. Dan Powell was with us, of course, in the beginning, but the folks in Barkin's office, Barkin in particular, thought I had rocks in my head when I told them what we were going to do and approached them for some money in the first primary. But Dan Powell was some kind of tickle. Nothing to do him, but he set up a conference with me and Al Barkin the next morning. And of course, I had to rearrange my schedule and leave the board meeting. Had a schedule to do this, but we had that conference. And of course, they were very pleased at the result of the thing. And we had a little discussion. Of course, Barkin's got a phone in both hands, things going on all over the country, you know. And so we had a little discussion about setting up something to raise money. I told Al, I said, well, I think this will be good after the second primary because the Republicans are going to be spending a ton of money and that we ought to make plans to raise $40,000, $50,000 out of the labor movement after the second primary. But I said, the best thing that you could do right now is to give me $5,000 to carry back with me to present to the Sunday meeting of the Danton Finance Committee. And he called the secretary in and she wrote out the check. And I also talked him out of $1,000 for judicial room. So I brought back $6,000 with me. Now we'll have this meeting Sunday at the Hilton, and all of you invited to attend if you can. Now we're inviting the presidents of all the central bodies in, and they will have some other folks at that meeting, and I've been asked to extend to you an invitation to attend if you'd like to. One or two of you present in the central bodies, you've already got the invite. That'll be at the Hilton at 3 o'clock Sunday afternoon. We just got a call, I understand, after we left the office, that Finch is going to also have his Sunday meeting at the Hilton, so it might become a rather interesting affair before the day is over with.
He's moved from the Ramada Inn, huh?
We'll try not to fight. Now, do we have any,
It wants to fight.
do you have any comments on the senatorial thing that you'd like to, I know Brother Cater's got an announcement he wants to make.
I don't guess, Claude, anything
All right.
other than what, the people the other night at the celebration
Yeah.
here. There was, people of all kinds, there, of course, all over the state. And of course, there's some of them naturally that don't really think too much of us as such, but I want you to know that there was nobody there. And nearly every person there spoke to me. And every one of them said that our endorsement was what did it. That there was no question about it, that our endorsement did it. And of course, Maurice himself, when he come, he told me that he wanted me to know, and I told him Claude was in Washington. He said, well, you tell him that I said that you all did it. And he told my daughter later downtown here that he said, I will never be able to repay your dad and his organization for what they did for me. So that's
Well, I don't think there's any question about it. I think, of course, the people that really did it are those of you out there in the field and our central bodies. I think all of them to be congratulated, but basically they're the ones that did the yeoman work in this thing. And I hope they all get up here Sunday because I want to publicly express my appreciation before the rest of the group and then for the fine work you've done. And now, of course, we still got a hell of a lot of work to do. Brother Cater has asked me to give him an opportunity to speak to you. He's got a T-shirt here he's wearing. He sent me one here a while back and it goes over real good. If any of you want one of those things, I understand if you'll give him the size, and if you want one, he'll have to make arrangements to get them. Is there cost involved?
No, this is supposed to be free. I just called down there and they're expecting the shipment of stuff in about 4 o'clock this afternoon. So somebody might want to wait around and take some back.
Yeah.
Posters, whatever.
Well, now this is what I've done. Some of you, I I know had trouble on getting campaign material, and I checked with the printer yesterday to see what they were doing. They put most of the money in the medium and the TV and stuff like that. And they didn't spend a whole lot of money for printed material. And some of you I know were hollering for material, you had trouble getting it. So yesterday I checked with the printer to see what they had ordered. And they hadn't ordered very many bumper stickers, so I took it upon myself to personally order 5,000 bumper stickers, and we'll have 5,000 bumper stickers for distribution here Sunday. He thought he could have them ready by Sunday. So we'll try to get some of those. This is just for our folks. We'll try to get some of those things into your area. We need to get these bumper stickers on cars all over the place. Some areas, I see them, in some areas you see car after car with nobody on them, you know?
Wayne told me, on yesterday that they was expecting some material in yesterday. I don't know what they got.
Sunday. They had
told
only
me, I
ordered
talked to him
2,000 bumper
yesterday.
stickers, so I checked with Ralph Sowell, who's doing the work for him over here.
Claude, I've
Yeah.
just come to the conclusion that there's bumper stickers is one of the least,
Least effective.
well, it's effective, but as
Yeah.
far as for putting your money somewhere, it's one of the least things you get your money back, because you can pass them out by the thousands, and for every 1,000 you pass out, if there's 50 gets put on a car somewhere, you know, people just don't wanna put them on their car. I think it's both, that people just don't want them on there, and then the other thing is, you know, the old type that you used to, you put it on there and you had to scar the surface of your bumper to ever get it off of there.
Well, it's like my husband, I can't put one on my car or pickup, I never know which one I'm gonna be driving, and my husband can't, in his business, he can't have anything on his car, any vehicle he drives.
Yeah,
You
but
know,
there's a
our
lot
people
of
can't,
people, well,
they're the
yeah, but
public
there's a
and
lot
they
of
can't
people,
have
there's a
that.
lot of people not, it's just that, you know, we've passed them out and passed them out, and they just, you keep hoping you're gonna start seeing them on the road, and you can drive all over the state and not see 'em.
Well, I did this because of the fact that some of the essential body officers' presidents were raising unshirted hell with me because they couldn't get bumper stickers and they couldn't get campaign material. There is a demand out there in some areas.
Oh, I'm not saying.
That's the primary reason I did this, you know.
I got one from the, you know, the meeting after our convention there.
Yeah.
I got one and put it on my car, and I guess I've had 300 people to ask me, where can I get?
Well, you
a
see,
bumper
this is
sticker?
what I'm talking about. In some areas, there's a big demand for them, and Wayne White is one of the guys talked to me about this bumper sticker business.
He stayed
Well,
on.
we don't have enough in Clinton.
You know?
They don't have enough anywhere, Claudia. The
Yeah.
headquarters of Danton has been calling my office trying to get material for to
See,
give
that's what
out.
I'm talking
I
about.
said, look, if y'all ain't got it, how you figure I'm gonna get it? I said, I done give out one little I had, and if you hadn't got none, we were both out.
Well,
You know what I mean?
I put this 5,000, this order for 5,000 in for our folks. So our folks will have something to carry back with them for distribution Sunday. Now, what Ralph's saying is true in some areas, but in some areas, they're hollering for this stuff, you see? I'm
Oh,
sure.
You got people hollering for it,
Yeah.
whether they get put on the cars or not, you gotta try to give it to
You
them.
have to give it to them.
So they start saying, what kind of deal is this, you know, we can't get literature for the game.
Yeah.
Well, Clark reckon we've been until being about Tuesday, and I'll be up in northeast Mississippi Tuesday,
You
Wednesday.
be at the meeting Sunday?
Yeah, I'll be at the meeting Sunday, and
Try to get you
the
some stuff.
committee we have set up in Starkville and that area up in there, they called me for some material they don't have,
Yeah.
so I'm going up there and I can take it.
Yeah. Well, I talked with Ralph, the printer, yesterday, and he's printing up some more of the little brochures and some more of the placards and things you nail up on the trees. But they're gonna place an order for 2,000 bumper stickers, and I just felt compelled because of the demand we'd already got to do something like this. For our people, this is strictly for us.
Claude?
Yeah.
Danton killed Lee County, up in north Mississippi.
Yeah, I want to congratulate you guys on that one. That was one to come in as a real surprise. Before that was a Finch stronghold.
That's, we got a small problem up there though. Of course, that's where the majority of the union people are, as you well know,
Right.
is in Lee County.
Right.
But about 2 days prior to the election, the League of Women Voters interviewed all the candidates.
Yeah.
put a piece in the Tupelo Journal about Mr. Danton being against Humphrey Hawkins, against national health, and far right to work. And I had a lot of questions on this. And
Yeah.
if they hit this thing hard
Yeah.
before the second election, you're gonna have a lot of people that's gonna be questioning.
Yeah, I am very much aware of what you said. I've got a number of telephone calls about the same thing. And of course, if those of us on the committee recall, we had a little discussion with Martha Reese on this one, and we agreed that it was one of them kind of things that we'd be better off just to leave alone. Then they come along with this kind of crap and publish it in the paper, and it has created problems. I'll tell you what I propose to do. You run this one by you. I think we've had a little discussion with Maurice on this. I'll have to play the tape to make doubly sure that we did. But we adopted a resolution at the convention, you recall, presented by the board, on the possibility of amending Taft-Hartley whereby an agency shop would be permissible. That would eliminate the freeloader, the fact that you have to represent non-union members without them helping pay the freight. And if it's agreeable with you folks, I'd like to sit Mr. Danton down with our committee before our COPE convention, go over this thing with him and get him committed to that proposition. I don't think we have time to correct what's been done up to this point, but I think before we go all out for him in November, that we have to get a commitment of some kind out of him like this. Now, we don't have time to do an educational job on right to work. The only people that fully understand what it's all about is union members. We found out in 1960 that they'd done an excellent job of brainwashing people and convincing them that this was a good proposition. Folks today don't know what we're talking about unless you're a union member, you see? So if it's all right with you folks, I'd like to do that after the second primary. And I'm assuming we'll talk about the COPE convention, we'll get it on there. We could do that now if you'd like, tie this all together. We've got that thing set for the 26th, assuming that Maurice wins the Democratic primary. I think we ought to invite him to come in and make another address, another pitch to our convention. And prior to that time, I think we ought to sit down with him, with the interview committee, and get him nailed down a little tighter on some of these things that we're concerned about.
Claude, could I say something?
Yes.
If I remember correctly, when we interviewed him on right to work in the agency shop and everything, I thought he answered the thing pretty as good as you could without. He said that right at the present, I believe is what he said, was right at the present that he didn't believe a majority of the people in Mississippi wanted to do away with the right to work, and he was gonna have to be on that the majority of people's side. He said if we could convince him that the majority of people did want to, well, he would sit down and listen to it and change his mind. He also said, you know, that he was, the way I understood him, that he was for the agency shop. In fact, I asked him the question, did he think it was fair for us to have to represent these members? And he said no.
Well, that's
and
what,
some of the people I think it's called you talked with me and they just said I gave them a better answer than you did. I don't I don't know now, but he was sitting right here and I was sitting right there and I was laying it on him and I thought he was real honest in the way that he said that he was going to try to represent everybody, and he didn't think a majority of people in Mississippi wanted to do away with right to work.
well, you see, I thought that we had had that discussion. I
We
wasn't
did
real
have it.
sure about it. I thought we had I told
That's
Cecil,
right.
I think it was, we were talking about this, but we had, you know, we had all of this, and we've had a lot of other things to clutter up my mind, and I wasn't positive about it, and I haven't had time to pull the tape out and play it. But what I want to do, Curtis, let's clarify this. What I want to do is to nail him down on this and then get him to tell the delegates at this convention what he proposes to do on this one.
On the agency.
Right?
Yes, on the agency shop, he just told me, I thought I was right. He said no problem on the agency shop.
Well, this will help us tremendously to correct and alleviate some of the stuff that's going on out there.
I think we need to our members especially, to say something here that, what I told them. And I just told them the truth. Danton was not 100% for labor.
Right.
And I just told him that. But he was so much better than the rest of the ones we interviewed, that is the reason we supported him. I think some of our members, in fact, I know they do, they think that just because we support a person, that he got to vote 100% labor. Well, it's gonna be a many a day for in Mississippi, we get somebody elected that's gonna vote 100% labor. What we're trying to do is pick the one that will do the best job for us.
Right.
And they get the AFL-CIO report or something, and so voted against it. I know how mad it makes them, cause it makes me the same way. But you can, when you get somebody like Eastland and Stennis up there, been up there for years and had never voted for us. If they did, it was a mistake. We got to pick the one that will do the least damage to us, or do the most for us. And we ain't gonna get nobody right now that's gonna do everything.
Basically, what I'm saying is this, when these people read it in the paper, the fact that what his stand is, and they know the programs that FLCO has been pushing all this time, and they're gonna come to you and wanna know why. Now, I believe if Maurice could answer the Coke convention, where you got a bunch of delegates from a local union, then they can go back and put the word to it.
That's what I propose to do. If it's all right with this board, we'll proceed in that fashion. I don't know, we just have to have him meet with our committee. I might can sit down and go over this with him and get a commitment out. I think he needs to say that to our convention, because he's gonna have to give our folks some incentive to really go all out for him. I don't know of a better way of dealing with it. I agree with Maurice Stanton that they've done a real good job of selling this phony proposition. If people fully understood it, then I think they'll be with us. But, you know, we don't have time to put on an educational program, but I think on agency shop and the fact that a guy has to pay for union representation, people understand this. So if it's all right with you, we'll proceed in that direction. You think we ought to have a meeting of the committee with him, or should we just talk to him and get a commitment out of him? How should we proceed with
As long as he makes a statement to the convention, whatever it takes to do that.
that? All right, okay.
That's
all
the
right.
important thing.
All right.
Let me say something. Ronnie Bell was not, he wasn't on the board.
Right, at that time.
After we had our interviews with the candidates, then with the full executive board, before you become a member, Cliff Finch come in to talk with us for a while, and he volunteered. We wasn't interviewing this character, he was just talking to us. He would not vote to repeal Section 14B. He volunteered this to us.
That's right. We didn't even ask him the question.
That's right.
Yeah, I realize this.
I want to say another thing too, Claude. We had a meeting, somewhat of a union meeting, union members, with Maurice and Meridian. And he made a statement, and I wasn't just listening to him, I was hearing him too.
Yeah.
He said that the more he had to do with labor, the better he liked it. You know, he didn't have our endorsement before, but he's really proud of it, and he's letting the people know this too.
Right.
Well, that's good.
The main thing I'm trying to get across is
I know what you're talking
that the officers of your local union probably understand what you have to go through. You rank and file don't. And that's the people that's gonna get elected.
Well, that's the reason they're beating us to death now. Why'd you endorse somebody if he didn't promise you nothing, see?
Okay, what I have a question is that how effective the statement at the Coke convention gonna be to the rank and file members? Because I think Tom run into a problem back here, that the leadership comes to these meetings and then they do not go back and report to the membership, and these are the people that we're concerned with.
Well, with this convention, unless I'm overruled, this convention will be open to the press. The press will be covering this thing, you can depend on that. And if we can get Maurice to make a statement like this to the delegates, don't worry, the press will pick it up. Press will pick it up. They've done the job on us in the press anyhow, so the job has to be done this way. Any objections here on handling it this way? We had it wide open, they covered him before.
I don't have no objection, but Claude, what would be sure you meet that you would get this statement to the ranking file membership? What would be wrong with having a mail out of his statement?
Yeah, well, I think,
If he
right,
makes a statement.
right, this is very good. Now, we will do another statewide mailing, and hopefully we'll have everything on the computer. That's one thing I ain't told you about the problem we had on that thing. Well, I'm getting ready to do that in just a half a minute. In a half a minute, we're gonna get into that. Well, we'll do that now. I'm getting some flack out of the secretary, so I might as well go ahead and take care of that matter now. I mentioned to you the fact that we'd had to drop everything and went to work in the Danton thing, primarily preparing a statewide mailing. Now, you know, I'm sure that we agreed to get on a computer set up in Washington last fall. They assured us at that time that they'd have the Mississippi members on the computer. Well, we get to this election, and we got a total of 36,000 names and addresses on the printout they mailed us. We checked it out and determined what unions was on it and what unions wasn't. We went to James and asked him to do a address, for instance, to his members. So we bundled up the thing and set it down there. He did an address job for us for ACWA. I called the paper workers, the rubber workers, or Ronnie handled the rubber workers, paper workers, the wood workers, who else was it? Oh, carpenters and steel. Well, we were not able to do anything with operate. Well, we got, I'm going to get to that. We weren't able to get anything out of the carpenters or steel. They had already done a printout, sent it over the computer, and the problem was there. They discarded it before we got on it, you see. Now, we hope to have all that corrected in time for the general election. The woodworkers sent us a printout. The paper workers sent us a printout on the stick-on label. The rubber workers sent us one on a printout that could be put on by the Cheshire with the people that's done it for us. We contacted local unions that were not on the computer. We got several carpenters locals did an address job to their members. That's Biloxi, Gallatin, Pascagoula, Vicksburg, and of course we got 1471 and Natchez. The bigger carpenters unions, industrial unions, we wasn't able to get to at all. You follow me? Now, we were able, by doing it, we got the operating engineers, by the way, the statewide local, several other, yeah, Brother Turner, all right. They did, you know, we got them to do an address job for their members that they had an up-to-date. Well, all of this meant that we were able to, how many did we do finally? 55,000. We did a total of 55,000. Now that's, remember, we only had 36,000 on the printout that we got. That means that we scrounged up, what's that, 19,000? 19,000 names and addresses this fashion. And the secretaries worked overtime in the office, and we're very grateful to them for the hard work they did. Now, how about that?
I'll say this, Claude, it evidently agrees with both of them because they've been so friendly and nice while they've been loaded up with work down there. Hadn't had no time that they can tell.
Now, on top of that, of course, they had to do mail-outs for Ralph in the 4th District, building trades. You just wouldn't believe what all they've been doing. That's the reason they were late with the minutes, as I've told you. And of course, you know, in addition to that, we've had other things that we've had to take care of as well. But hopefully, by November, we'll have this mailing system taken care of. I had a conference with John Perkins while I was in the Washington office, and And we got on the phone with Tom, and he told Tom some things to do about getting some stuff into him. James, you did a printout, I believe, we're gonna get, but that's
Right, for the
already.
computer, right.
Right, that's already going in. And hopefully, by the latter part of this week, we'll get another printout of the new ones that they've put on to receive this second mail out. But it hasn't been easy.
In other
No.
words, what you have to do is milk every cow in the barn to get coffee cream. That's exactly what you
Yeah,
have to do.
the thing is real good, I want you to know this. We're very pleased with the system once we get them on there. Now, you see what we've done, we do the message. Miss Phillips prints the message on our letterhead. Then we get it down to a place downtown. It's got a Cheshire machine. That's the thing that slaps addresses on the mail out. They take that thing, they fold it, they address it, they bundle it, they put it in the post office for us. So it takes a lot off of us by doing it this way, and it's much faster. See, it's been taking us a full week to do an address job and a mail out like this, and like it is, they spend about, what, 2 days printing? Day and a half just printing, so we get it down there. Now, once we get the whole thing on there, then it's gonna be a real good system. We're very pleased with it. It's gonna be much better than the old system. The only thing that we won't be able to do, as much as we have in the past, and that's mail outs for individual local unions. We're gonna have, yeah, we run off a lot of sample ballots. This is true in those areas that, more than, have I overlooked anything now? I covered that? Yeah, building trades, I mentioned that we had to do mail, we did mail outs for them. Let me ask you folks a question. What do you hear from the rank and file members on the mail out?
I got a good response.
Good response.
So did I.
That's the reason I want to know.
I got a good response.
What's
Well received.
well received? Well, apparently, I'm convinced, I don't know how y'all feel about this, but I'm convinced that this individual mail out does a lot of good. The reason I'm asking the question.
The only thing I found that they receive it well, but they forget by the time election day who we said vote for. So that's why I suggested a little slip of paper. You see it.
Well, no.
No, just something where they could just cut it off and put it in the envelope and keep it for election day.
Well, I'm convinced that this mail out does an awful lot of good. And I guess I judge this thing based on past expense. Back several years back, when we started to doing a mail out, we started getting all kinds of flack from rank and file members on this. We got some real dirty letters, people writing on them, sending them back in, and all that kind of crap. Would you believe this time around we haven't got any of that? We haven't got any of that. It's probably, yes,
No, I feel that the mail out is one of the most important things that we have done. Because within the community where we have labor people and people that are not in the union.
Yeah.
They depend on our people, for which way to go.
Yeah.
I think it's very helpful.
Yeah. Well, this last message we sent out is very short, as you'll notice, and some of the objections we got, at least some of the comments we got was the message was too long. So we deliberately condensed this. Huh?
Right.
Yeah, I think perhaps you was one that mentioned that, so.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think you need to keep it just as short as possible, because I know, talking to some of the delegates to the convention, they said they were so confused with the executive board's report.
Yeah.
And that thing got so confused that they thought you were saying that if Danton didn't get elected, you was gonna have to vote Republican. They read everything in that thing. So, same way.
Explain ourselves too much.
When you start trying to explain yourself too much, well, you end up confusing a lot of people.
This time is about as concise as you can get it.
I agree with you.
Yeah. We done give them the explanation in the other one. We're reminding them to go back on the 27th this time. I don't know.